Good afternoon, Poland, and welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters. We're up here on the analysis desk, moments away from the grand finals to take place. We're all very excited, and we do have a special guest joining us up here. We do have Mike Morheim, the CEO and co-founder of Blizzard Entertainment. Welcome, Mike, to the desk.
Thank you for having me.
The crowd's been noisy all weekend, and it's a fantastic moment for you to be. It's your first time in Poland.
It is, yeah.
How have you been enjoying it?
It's been amazing. This is a great event.
And it's pretty spectacular to even just turn around and see the size of the arena, the amount of Polish passion and Polish fans that have come here to watch esports over the weekend.
This is an incredible crowd. I've watched events in the past, usually online, and you can see the passion of the crowd, but to be here in person, it's just very special.
And he likes Poland without having had pierogies yet, too. So he actually doesn't know how much he's about to like Poland as well.
And it must be a great feeling as well to see your game, to see your beauty up on the stage.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the support it's getting from all the players, and obviously some amazing StarCraft games today.
And we do have an amazing grand finals coming up here, Demuslim. I mean, we got Polt versus Snute. It's a great finals. Polt, you mentioned, well, before we were live, that Polt has been one of the most successful players in WCS history. I mean, Mike, you've watched him over the years. I've seen you cheer for him multiple times, being a Terran player yourself.
That's right. Polt's an amazing player to watch. I know it's gonna be a tough finals, but you couldn't ask for better finals for IEM.
What are your thoughts, Demuslim, on the finals?
You have one of the most consistent Korean players against one of the most consistent foreigners, and Snute's been really good for the last 2 or 3 years. He's been one of the guys that we can really get behind, and the fact that Snute's been looking better and better as this tournament goes on against Snute, the guy that we always think, oh, he's not doing that well, and then he just smashes absolutely everybody. I really feel this is quite the collision of really sick players.
Yeah. I feel like a weird tension at the possibility of this final. Like I was really certain Nurchio in particular was going to give Polt a run for his money, and that was just not the case at all. Yeah. But this is, both these guys were on either side of the grid, and they've been mowing down people right and left and seeming to get stronger as the tournament goes on. Snute in particular, I have to agree with you. Like even on stage, this was some of the calmest Snute I've seen. But Polt, consistency, like, it's not even fair to use that word so glib with him. He is consistency. Like 2011, winning the Super Tournament. He's won on every continent. He's won in Korea, outside of Korea. He's been a student. He's not been a student. It's like, he just doesn't stop winning as Terran. And it's been through 3 games, through patches, through maps. It's ridiculous how consistent he's been.
And one of the really cool things about Snute, too, he's like so hard on himself notoriously for the last few years. But out on that stage, he looked like he was finally enjoying himself and really reaping the reward from all his hard work. And that's such a change in his temperament. I mean,
what was it like for you? I mean, we haven't actually been on the stage personally, but you did earlier on. What was it like for you to walk onto the stage to just look around?
You know, it's a big hall. It's packed with people. It's very loud when they're all cheering, and when those lights are flashing and going, it's pretty awesome. There's a lot of energy.
I have to ask too, the way you handle that trophy. Have you been working out lately? Is your diet better? I mean, it's I think it's a 125-pound trophy. He was just holding with one hand.
My daughter's getting heavier every day.
There you go.
That's definitely helped.
And she's here with you as well. You mentioned, didn't you, that she's been in multiple continents watching esports at such a young age, just 11 months now.
Yeah, she's 11 months, or actually 13 months now.
Oh, 13, sorry.
And she's watched live esports on 3 continents now. So, you know, Guinness, maybe that's a record or something.
Oh, absolutely.
And, well, I think it's safe to say she might not be a Protoss. Do you think she's more a Zerg, a Terran, or am I mistaken?
Why would you say that? What? Maybe she is.
Well, we do have a Terran and a Zerg in the family already. So,
so she is a Protoss.
Let me talk to her. Don't use this term as an example for Protoss, by the way, right?
Demuslim, do you have a favorite for the finals? Are you leaning towards Polt because he's a Terran player? And of course, you play Terran too.
Biased.
My opinion has totally changed. Before this tournament, I really thought Snute was having such a hard time that I really banked on him losing to Major in the first round. But the momentum that he's really built up, and the fact that he did go through one of the hardest players in such a comeback situation in that last game against Hydra, it's hard to count him out, Matt. Like, it's so close between them. That's what makes it such a good final.
But
I felt there was a but coming.
I'm always watching. I'm watching for the non-committal.
Heart says Snute, brain says Polt.
Still kind of non. There's a third option there, but perhaps we won't bring it up on stage here.
Who would you prefer, or I mean, not prefer, but who do you think is going to win if you were to pick?
That's really tough.
It is tough. Is it Polt because of his experience, perhaps? Or is it too 50-50 for you?
This is the hardest interview he's had in a long time.
I know. He's like, I've been asked many questions over the years.
Asking the tough questions.
Polt or Snute is hard to call.
I'm going to have to go Snute.
You'd go Snute. I think the crowd is quite behind Snute. They were very loud before. Jeff, what are your thoughts on the finals coming up?
It's really difficult. It is, actually. I really want it to be a great series. Best of 7 on this stage, which, by the way, that stage is absolutely incredible. I mean, Poland has always delivered. Audience amazing. It's going to be really hype. I can't wait. So that's what I want. But who do I think's going to win? I honestly, I do think it's going to be Polt. I mean, the counterattack, just the aggression, he seems to be more powerful. When they keep asking him, they're like, you know, we keep saying you're going to lose. You shouldn't be winning. He's like, what do you think? He's like, oh, just wait. I'll deliver for my fans. And we talk about confidence, and we're like really happy for Snute because it's like, oh, Snute, like come out of the darkness, like come here, Snute. And he's like, oh, hi, and they're like, are you confident? He's like, kinda. With Polt, every time you ask him, like, are you confident? He's like, yes, of course. Like, why? That's a dumb question. Don't.
I think it's safe to say for both players on stage, this is going to go down as one of the moments, one of the biggest points in their career. Almost, you can say, to a point of win or lose. I mean, we've had some big moments up there with $100,000 for first place, with the, you know, the SOS proxy gateways when we're up here. But this is a massive moment for
It's
both.
really cool. I mean, Snute, I think I heard this correctly. Snute said this is the first time he's been on a stage with this kind of a crowd, and he's excelling and doing well. So that's so amazing for him. It's a grand final, again, something that he had done in the past, but kind of fell away from in 2015. And then Polt has 3 WCS championships, but let's not forget that was actually kind of a while ago. And all of a sudden, he too, when everyone's doubting him and saying, you know, maybe your best years are behind you, here he is once again, and he's having the tournament of his lifetime at the right time as well. This is huge. Winner of this is guaranteed a spot in those playoffs at the end of the year to go on to the championship.
Of course, we'll be looking to see that. Demoslim, quick thoughts then before we go over to Mike. Any expectations? We'll obviously go in more in depth very shortly after we bring the players out, but last couple of words? I
think this is going to go the distance, I really do. The last time I saw a foreigner against a great Terran in the finals of WCS, it was Stefano against MVP, and Stefano ended up winning the first map, I believe, or it was 1-1 and then got obliterated, which I don't want to happen. Sorry, Elias, for reminding you. But yeah, I think this one's going to go the distance. They're both very, very solid players, consistent, and they've shown it in this tournament.
Okay, Mike, any final words here to the Polish crowd, to viewers watching from home?
I just want to say, you know, thanks again for all your support of StarCraft and Blizzard games, and we're going to continue doing our best to keep making great games.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Morheim up here on the desk. Thank you for joining us, Mike. It's a pleasure as always. We are going to go to the stage now to bring out the 2 grand finalists.
Thank you very much, Sean. Yes, we're not too far away. Just a few more minutes, unfortunately, to wait for the players to come out. But until then, I just wanted to make sure that you guys are all ready for this grand final. Are you? Nah, sorry. That's rubbish. I know you guys can do much better than that. Are you ready? Okay, that's much better. Now, one of the cool things about the Intel Extreme Masters is that they've always had the most magnificent trophies. This year is no exception, with a brand new trophy that you saw Mike Morheim bring down to the stage. But what I really want to know is, how do they make these things? Let's take a look.
Nothing worth fighting for is easy. Everything that is extraordinary takes time. Hard work, perfection, countless weeks of devotion, endless months of dedication, years of history. It represents it all. Who will leave their legacy engraved into the World Championship trophy?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Intel Extreme Masters Grand Final and the WCS Winter Championship. Time to introduce you to our two grand finalists. They fought their way through a single elimination bracket consisting of best of fives all the way from the round of 32. The final will be best of 7. Our first player is a multiple champion on multiple continents. He is also a 3 times WCS champion in his own right, bidding to break the records and head to a 4th. Please welcome CM Storm Polt! And his opponent, having also come through a very difficult bracket, 2 Terrans, 2 Zergs, 2 Koreans, a former Home Story Cup champion, playing in his first ever WCS final. Please give it up for Team Liquid's Snute!
Snute's ZvT.
It's been 4 days of StarCraft 2 action here at the Intel Extreme Masters. 32 players started, but these are the 2 best players in this tournament. It's been a long road to the finals, but we're finally here. And what 2 players we have. To be honest, you could have looked at other players to be in the finals, but looking at this Polt versus Snute game, it's a Terran versus Zerg, one of the historic matchups we've had in StarCraft forever.
Yes.
It's gone down as some of the most memorable finals, memorable semifinals we've ever had, and I think we're going to be in for something special.
It really is, and I like that you're starting off with the TVZ idea and concept. Like even back to Brood War, Boxer versus any Zerg, Yellow is kind of the big matchup, Flash versus Jaedong. It's just for whatever reason, well, actually it kind of makes sense. And like a lot of the videos actually back in StarCraft and even in StarCraft 2, it's Terran versus Zerg in a lot of those videos. It's just in our mind, it's one of the cool things. And here we have that embodied again in the players like Snute, resurging once more, gaining confidence, representing one of the most prolific teams, Team Liquid. They've been across the board supportive of all the games. And then Polt, the timeless Terran, the gatekeeper of success. Like, he's been in so many finals. Like, he's won a bunch of finals, by the way. He's actually also lost a bunch of finals. This guy has been a few games shy of being iconic throughout the years beyond recognition. It's insane.
And one thing I have to bring up here, that just seeing the shots of the players walking out onto the big arena. I think sometimes even at home you can't quite capture what it is like to be on that stage, to play in this stadium, to play in front of this crowd that we have behind us. It's something that, like we said when Mike Mortmine was up here, you're going to remember this for the rest of your life.
Yeah, this is the big show. It doesn't get much bigger than this. It really doesn't. And if you were talking about Snute, the timeless Terran, he's been in so many championships. I'm sure he's comfortable as hell. He must really love that position, actually, if I had to think about it. Whereas Snute, he's won a Home Story Cup, but this is a gigantic stage. Yeah. There's a ton of pressure on him to win this one against Polt. It's going to be hard, but I think he's got it in him. It's going to be a very close series for me.
He's definitely got it in him, but we got to be kidding ourselves if Polt isn't the favorite here.
The thing about Polt is he seems to choose when he peaks, which is such a talent to have. Like online, he's good. Like he's always going to perform well. You know he's going to be pretty consistent. But holy cow, does he really turn it on at tournaments? And going up against Snute, he's going to be feeling pretty confident. He's not the kind of guy that's like, he knows Snute is very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Polt is the favorite here.
I mean, in the last couple of big tournaments that Polt played in was WCS Season 2 and Season 3 last year. He won Season 1. But he didn't quite perform to his own standards. He is a winner. He wants to win. And coming into this tournament, he said, and to all his fans across the globe, I will not disappoint you this time. And look at him. He's in the grand finals, and he's sticking to his words.
He has. He's delivered. He's in the grand finals. It's already an accomplishment on itself. But I feel like, and what I really like is, again, for both these guys, this will be their hardest test. Polt has been doing it with multitasking, with aggression, and getting work done in the early game. Snute and all of his ZvTs this tournament has been surviving early and mid game, getting to the late game, and then blasting away these really capable Terrans. It's a really fun like mix of style here because the two of them want to do opposite things, so it's going to be kind of a battle of wills, I feel. It's going to be awesome.
And what's also really nice about these players, say if they were like other game characters and you had to choose how good their skill was in each bar, I feel that they're both like 9 out of 10 on absolutely everything. They're both so well-rounded.
Well, let's go into a little bit of game specifics now then. We know the stories of both players quite a lot. Let's go game specific. It's the best of 7. There's no maps that you can veto out of the system. You're going to have to play every single one. How are we looking this series to play out? Because we know that Polt, you've all three said it, that he's been in so many different finals. He's got that experience. He knows how to play a best of 7. There's going to be different strategies chosen at different times. There's going to be aggression. There's going to be the breaks. How do you think that Polt's going to approach this to Muslim?
You have to play every map, which means you're going to have to play some of the maps that you don't want to at all. Terran against Zerg. Snute's ridiculously good at macro. He's just incredibly defensive. So playing him on a map like Prion Terraces, for example, going into that, is Polt going to do something crazy like he did against Nurture it was in that round? And that's one other weird thing. Polt shown that he is actually mixing it up a little bit. He'll either drop you with a tank, drop you with Marines, do an all-in on you. So the total standard Terran that we usually see, he's mixing it up and he's playing the player as well. I'm looking... How is he going to do it? Well, he knows better than me. He's the one in the final. I honestly don't know, but he's showing that he can mix it up. I
think we have to point out, as from looking at any Zerg game in the last couple of months in Legacy of the Void, Valdez, is that the golden key seems to be when you get Ultralisks out. As soon as you're at that point, you are very strong. Eventually, they do become worse the longer the game goes. But that very first time that they come out, they're so strong. And that's surely what Snute's going to be looking at. And therefore, Polt is going to be looking perhaps to break him before he can even get to that point.
And yeah, we saw that a bit from Polt versus Nurchio even. He was playing a fantastic series there. He was getting really far ahead in upgrades. He was playing a fantastic macro game as well. But whenever the Ultras came out, he either had the answer or he avoided it. He used his drops. He attacked at 2 places at one point. Even if Nurchio seemed like he was taking a fantastic fight against Thors, tanks, you name it, there's a couple of drops going around the back door of his base. He's losing a bunch of bases and stuff like that. He was talking about Snute's great macro. He has to make sure that he defends his bases, even if he does move out.
That's one like really great point you bring up. The fact that Polt, he knows his objective in the game. If he can't take on the army, he's got greater victories to have around the map, which is something that most Terrans won't do, which is how smart Polt really is. Most Terrans will totally commit to stopping that army of impossible Ultras, but you can whittle them down over time, be it in tanks, Thors, Marauders, eventually in Liberators.
I do want to say, though, Ultras have been kind of defining TVZ in this tournament, but one guy's been a little bit of an outlier, and that is Snute. He's actually been opting for the Broodlord tech quite often. It's not to say we're not going to see Ultras, of course we will, but I feel like Broodlord is actually something really, really cool. He's been diving in on kind of the critical base and getting in on the production. And that's actually won him games that we were like, oh, you're super dead. Like against Major, he was down like 4 bases. But with a decisive attack and a tech that perhaps doesn't get scouted or isn't seen as much, all of a sudden that Terran player's in a lot of trouble.
I mean, going off what you've said there, we're expecting a slightly different game coming out from Snute compared to Nurchio. How much is that going to affect Polt? Is his game plan going to change that much, or?
And that's... I'm so excited to see that because his MO, as you guys have said, and I just fully agree, we've seen different build orders from him. We saw him a timing attack in Game 3. Red Eye asked him about it. He's like, I just want to end this series. But that's that killer instinct that makes him so good. But at the end of the day, stylistically, he's returned to the same thing. It's been counterattacks, it's been multitasking, and it's been, you know, maybe different units in different places, but that's been the MO. Snute knows that, and Snute's MO has always been defend to late game and then win off the back of an awesome army.
And surely the first couple of maps are huge of importance here. Confidence, belief, just a couple of words to describe what these players are going to gain from the first map win, perhaps just the first one.
Yeah, momentum's a huge thing. Snute, we've seen that he's the kind of player that can really, really defeat himself, more so than anyone else. If the first few maps drop just over little things, maybe he gets too self-critical. But one really, I guess, big weakness that Polt has is, in the series that we've seen so far, and it is very Polt-esque, he'll be as safe as he can possibly be, knowing that he'll survive against absolutely everything. We saw him like deflect Nidus all-ins from 5K. In fact, that was a total all-in series where he deflected everything because of how safe he was. If Snute can assess the situation correctly, he can be playing super duper greedy, because even though we've talked about Polt mixing up the builds, the builds that he does, as soon as he is set on his path, he goes with it, and he doesn't detract at all. So he is quite predictable in a way.
He delays his third, and to your point, some of the harass he'll do is like a drop tank harass, which is okay, but it's not the kind of harass where it's like, oh, you are being mega greedy, here comes the attack to finish you. So if Snute changes his game plan just a little bit and probably plays a little bit more greedy around that third base, he can get a pretty big advantage early on, I think.
Yeah, he's very readable. The first, it's like a book. The first page will dictate the rest of the book. So if Snute can really latch onto that, and there's a lot of games where he's played against Zergs in this tournament already, Lambo, Firecake, and Nurchio, and it's kind of scary that he did just kind of saw through all of them. But yeah, there is definitely a linear path that he follows.
Okay, so if you were to go into Snute's booth right now, we're moments away from starting. We just have a couple of issues we're sorting out with the players. But if you were to go into Snute's booth and say, hey, buddy, want to listen to me? Because first of all, that's an important question. And he says yes. What would you tell him before playing against Polt?
I think one of the big things to pick out here is Polt seems to be a very map-dependent player. So he has a strategy for each map that he seems to roll out here. So I tell him what he needs to read and what will most likely come after. Be it, it's like a flower, or what's it called, tree chart almost going on, and he really does react like that. So I'd make sure that Snute knows the fundamentals and the first part to every story.
All right, thank you. Let's hear some predictions then. Valdez, please start the predictions.
Yeah, you guys are talking to Mike Morheim about how insanely difficult this is. I mean, Polt, the Korean player, he's been untouchable in the matchup so far. He's on fire. You were talking about how he peaks at the right time. My head does say Polt. My heart says Snute, but I'm going to give it to Polt 4-2.
I think that's a really good prediction.
This always seems to happen.
Just saying. Honestly, if Snute doesn't play the player here, he's going to lose 4-2. But if he can really latch on to the way that Polt's playing and read him correctly, we could actually see a Snute victory. I'm going to go with Snute 4-2, actually. I've changed my mind entirely.
I'm going to, I'll echo everything they said. It's like super hard to predict. I really want Snute to get this first WCS championship. I know him fairly well, and I know how hard he's worked for. I really want him to do it. But again, if you're asking me who I think's going to win, I'm going to go with a guy that's been doing it endlessly since 2010. And Polt on these stages seems to be a different kind of monster. I want the series to be really good. I'm hoping for a 4-2, but I think he wins it.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Here we go. It's time for the grand finals. I'm going to pass it off to the commentary team to bring you the best of 7 here at the Intel Extreme Masters.
Thank you very much, Apollo. I am so excited for this grand final, Roddy. A Zerg versus Terran, possibly a big championship win for Snute to finally get under his belt.
Absolutely, the biggest game out of his career. I mean, I just went over his history a little bit, and obviously he has won things in the past. I mean, if Snute does well here, or he has already done well, he will end up over $200,000 earned throughout his entire career, but that doesn't really matter, because this is the biggest game of his career, and maybe even more than anything, securing that spot at the end of the year at the WCS Global Playoffs, and of course, that very, very prestigious title. I mean, this man already has 3 of them, Nate.
Yeah.
Snute would really, really like to have one.
And the boys of the death said it all. Polt has claimed trophies, first place championships in Europe, in America, in Korea. He's been untouchable for the longest time, and he's become mortal in the last few years, but he is still one of the strongest contenders we have.
Yep, after this tournament, Polt has won over $400,000 in prize money alone playing StarCraft 2. Needless to say, he is a very, very successful Terran. Jeff mentioned it, you know, he has lost tournament finals, absolutely, but he's won a whole lot more than he's lost. Most of the time when Polt makes it to the final, he is a Polt that's out for blood. But once upon a time, he did lose against a European. Can Snute repeat what Torzane did in 2012? Well, we're about to find out.
Yeah, what an epic match we have. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is the Intel Extreme Masters Grand Final, and this is going to be the epic conclusion to the first part of many this year, with the Winter Championship crowning the first WCS seed into those global playoffs. Like you mentioned, Kev, this should be an absolutely amazing best of 7, and it is ready to go. We're starting on Laralac Crest. Get excited, ladies and gentlemen, in the bottom right, representing CM Storm for the last time. Give it up for Polt!
And over here on the right top side of Laralac Crest, we're looking at the main base of our blue Norwegian Zerg player, representing Team Liquid. Give it up for Snute.
There's the power of that Polish crowd, Roddy. My first time here, so awesome, so much energy in this stadium. And for a Terran versus Zerg series, Laralac Crest getting into it, a nice 4-player map, a little bit on the less crazy side.
Yes, but we do have vertical spawn locations though, and I think most of the time this is quite a bit better for Terran, isn't it, Nate?
Yeah, it's one of those positions where we'll have some pretty aggressive pushing. You don't have the super long rush distance going across, and the epic banners, of course, going across the center of the map.
Yep, Netwars always represent here in Poland. They're always ready to cheer up the crowd. In case someone gets a little bit silent, they will be there. They will start the chants.
And of course, you know, as the Muslim pointed out on the desk, we have seen Polt delay his third command center a lot against Zerg in this tournament. He sets himself up nicely on 2 bases to either go for a really big push or at the very least defend any attack you can send at him. And that's where things get a little bit tricky. I'm expecting if Snute has prepared for this style, we'll try to get a little bit on the greedier side, but not being too greedy that 2-base pressure can turn into a 2-base all-in and take the game.
Yep, while we see this Reaper make its way across the map, it is definitely worth mentioning that Polt has already played 3 Zerg opponents in this tournament, and he is 9-2 in maps. Snute, however, also played 2 Terrans. He is 6-2, and I think that's super cool, because sometimes you see someone have a phenomenal run, but then it's off the back of ZvZ or ZvP, and then suddenly they play their first ZvT in the final, and they're like, yeah, I didn't really practice that matchup, you know, and then they get 0-4. It's like, yeah, sorry, I had no chance. And that's definitely not going to be the case here. Both these players already showing us that they are excellent in this matchup.
Yeah, I think the most cool thing that we have to see is where Snute is going to adjust. And I think one of the cooler things is that Polt is one of the players that once he starts to ramp up and he's able to defend barely at home while sending those drops all over the map, like we saw him do against Nerchio and Fire Cake, that is where Snute is also very strong as well, because he loves that mid-game aggression.
Earlier this tournament, Snute played on this map against Masa, exact same spawning positions, and what he did is he made a whole bunch of links and he just ran them across the map, and he was able to get those links into the main base. Something that shouldn't have done any damage, however, at all, somehow did a crazy amount of damage. He's going to try to catch the Reaper over here in the middle of the map, but Polt, he is prepared. He won't be sleeping. Obviously, these links are not supposed to make their way into the main base. Does pick off the Reaper, but we already have 2 Hellions and a wall off here.
Yeah, nice defensive setup here from Polt. He had that bunker ready, unlike Masa, unfortunately, in that series, so he's able to hold the fort down. The Hellion transition will give Polt map control against those Zerglings, so Snute wants to get that 3rd base, start to spread their creep, and with the Roach Horn coming in, I'm not surprised by this, but Polt, a bit of a cheeky opening your double reactor factory.
I have not seen this since like the MLG days.
Yeah, I haven't seen this since Marine King Prime was winning MLGs. Very interesting build here with an armory follow-up, so looking to do a massive Hellbat attack to take the first game.
Extremely important building right now on the production tab for Snute. It is a Roach Warren. Without the Roach Warren, there is absolutely no way he will ever be able to deal with crazy amounts of Hellions. Snute doesn't know this yet, but maybe he's expecting something. He does have multiple Overlords nearby, as Funka, our awesome observer, is showing us. If these if these Overlords make their way into the main base, that would be phenomenal. He does make a lot of roaches already, though. I think this is pretty damn good news for Snute.
This is a super important moment because Hellbats absolutely destroy Zerglings in a head-up fight, and he's going to have so many Hellbats, it's going to be insane. So the creep spread becomes even more important, being able to reposition those roaches. A few Ravagers for range are also pretty nice, too.
Actually, pretty much perfect timing. Here are all the Hellbats. Polt is hoping for nothing but links, but surprise, surprise, multiple roaches already rare. You don't want to mob your Ravagers there, Snute, but as long as Snute micros his units, he should be able to clean this up. These Hellbats are doing a little too much, though, to these roaches.
That's really important to keep those roaches spread out. The Hellbats are moving in. All of the Queens are able to fire at once, so Queen does go down, but more Hellions. They rally across the map so quickly with these spawns. It's very difficult for Snute to hold on. He's got 11 roaches on the way, though.
He's going to be fine with the reinforcements, but this was not a super clean hold. He lost a few more units than he should have lost, but he will be able to clean up all these Hellions. Picks up one more, so in the end, this is still really good. And Snute is out for blood right now, man. He wants to counterattack. 14 links on the production tab as well. He's like, hey, if you make this many Hellions, you've got nothing at home.
I absolutely love this from Snute. If we look at the follow-up, how you switch this tech, Stim is halfway done, but he's only just now starting any extra barracks. He can't build Marines. He hasn't had tech labs on those factories, so he can't build siege tanks. Roaches and Ravagers should be able to do a tremendous amount of damage counterattacking against Polt's natural.
I think Polt is in a world of trouble over right now. I have no idea how he's supposed to stabilize over here. There is a layer attack, so there is a follow-up for Snute, but this is a crazy amount of units. There is one bunker, but there are barely any bio units. It's important to maybe pick up that Marauder, and that's exactly what he does. Snute is already doing so much.
This is not a Tasia build. He only has 2 command centers here. Every SCV that's lost significantly puts Polt further behind. SCV's dying left and right, 19-20 down. And if that bunker goes down, the natural will be forfeit. I don't know what Polt's supposed to do. He's got 2 tanks about to finish, but that's it.
I think this is going to be it. Snute is looking incredibly good over here in game number 1. The Polt not fighting anymore at all. There is 1 tank here on the high ground, but can 1 tank really keep these many Lings and Roaches outside of the Terran main base?
Doesn't look like it. The Lings and the Roaches spill into Polt's main. The Liquid player from Norway looking to take game number 1 here in the grand finals.
Perfect build by Snute. Awesome call on the Roaches.
GG. Snute takes game number 1 against Polt in a phenomenal play. We know Snute has played with those Roaches. We know he's used these builds, but to get everything out just in time to handle a highly unorthodox opening, I have not seen a single Terran player do this build in years, Roddy.
So do you think that Snute was just getting ready to attack himself? That's why he made all those Roaches of a relatively weak economy, like 38 drones. I think he wanted to be the aggressor. And obviously, when you want to be aggressive and then suddenly your opponent shows up like, hey, I'm actually planning to attack you. You're like, cool, that's awesome. Defender's advantage. Woohoo!
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about it like that, because if going back to what you said earlier about his game against Masa on this map, it was a little bit more Zergling based. And if Polt had that in his mind that maybe Snute would go for a big Ling play, then sure, Hellions are absolutely great. But at the same time, Snute has shown that favor for Roaches. I think you're onto something here, Kev, especially with the way that that bunker only covers the bottom half of your natural. Even if Polt doesn't attack him, there's still a lot you can do with Ravagers, just attacking the top side where there's no defenses.
Yep, and then just droning up behind that. But Snute, I was getting a little bit worried, though, because that initial hold, like Snute's build was just perfect against what Polt was doing, and he had plenty of Roaches, but he did eat a lot of Hellbat shots over there. Wasn't really splitting up his Roaches. Maybe a little bit nervous. I mean, can't blame him. This is a very big final, because I've seen Snute deal with Hellbats before, and then he doesn't end up losing a single Roach. You know, he just picks them off, you kite a little bit, you throw down a transfuse. So even though the defense against the Hellbats wasn't perfect, his strategy was, and in this case, that was more important than the execution.
Yeah, it's just one of those scenarios where if Snute had thought he had enough to hold on, taken that fight and built drones behind it, Polt might have just absolutely crushed him. But you said it perfectly. The reinforcement Roaches were more than enough to turn the tide, but also flip the counterattack back onto Polt. I don't think we'll be seeing him do any more builds like that for this series, but it's a best of 7. We've got a lot of time left, so maybe he decides to pull something a little bit different out, like that build he did on Prey Terraces against Nurchio.
I mean, I'm not going to say that Polt is shaken up right now, because he's such a veteran. He's been in so many finals already, but still, you know, only dropping 2 maps throughout this entire tournament and then going for a weird build in game 1 and it kind of falling flat on his face, that's not nice.
It is not, but we are ready to go into game number 2. In the bottom left of Orbital Shipyard, we have the red Terran player down 0-1. He's Polt!
Definitely looked a tiny bit annoyed, though. Did you see that as well? A couple of facial reactions were like, why did I do that? I mean, we've all been there. Over here on the right top side of Orbital Shipyard, we're looking at the main base of our Zerg player. He's representing Team Liquid. Give it up for Snute. Snute, man, just playing absolutely amazing StarCraft. I mean, I was looking at his results, you know, before, and it was like, actually, Snute has been doing better than I thought he was in Legacy of the Void. Just because he didn't make it to any big finals, other than a tournament in China, which wasn't really a high-profile tournament, even though there was a lot of money involved. If you look at the results, he's been good, but for some reason, people were not talking about him all that much.
Yeah, it's been interesting to follow sort of the foreign scene of StarCraft 2 over the last couple of months, because some of the players that were in this tournament, and especially at DreamHack Leipzig, were getting a bit more attention, you know? Bly was kind of coming up. At this tournament, we saw Nurchio, a Laser especially, a player that's been up and coming for quite some time, make big stabs. But a lot of people, maybe they were just expecting Snute to have picked up these results because we knew he was so good before these tournaments.
I mean, like a lot of the Terran players as well, right? Marine Lord, Happy, and I think Uturmo as well to some degree, even when he wasn't here, have been getting a lot of love. People have been talking about them a lot, and at the same time, Snute is kind of just waving here. He's like, guys, I'm still here. But maybe with the person that Snute is, it's kind of nice when people don't expect all that much from him. I mean, you remember when he went to the Intel Extreme Masters in Shenzhen, where people also didn't expect that much of Snute because 2015 wasn't his year. And then suddenly he beat the GSL and SSL final, or champion, excuse me, back then, back-to-back in the group stage, Rain and the other one, Classic. There we go.
I got you.
So maybe this is a good spot for Snute to be in, you know, when people don't have, it's not all eyes on Snute.
And that first win's got to give you a tremendous amount of confidence. So looking at this game, Snute goes to the low ground hatchery, will allow him to get the creep spread out towards where Reapers might come in a little bit more easily. Polt has only one game in this tournament so far, gone for sort of one basey type cheese. I don't expect him to play for any sort of crazy Reapers, but that's not happening in this game anyway. So just a little bit of harass coming out of the CM Storm Terran player. And the only things to really look out for are what is he going to do with this starport? We know Polt likes to open fast Viking, but we have seen a bit of that tank droppage too.
So Polt spotting that the first hatchery is on the low ground. Do you think that makes him a tiny bit nervous about potential aggression from Snute, or do you think he's not sweating it all that much? Oh, he's about to get the drone over here. Wow, headshot.
Yeah, nice
CSGO starts later, guys.
Nice pickup there to start this game by Polt. Of course, every drone kill is a little bit rough on the Zerg. You don't expect to lose those workers in this game. I think the most important thing about the low ground hatch, if you're a Terran, is you want to make sure that you can confirm the third base behind the main. If your Reaper can't get up there and you can't make sure, sometimes you could get caught off guard by something like a roach push that we saw on the last map. Snute will take that base. He's going to get to work on the rocks. But here we go. Polt, once again, shaking things up a little bit. Not going for the Hellions to defend, just getting a fast tank. And I'm going to assume a fast medevac as well.
Yep, I'm expecting the exact same thing. You know, just pick up that tank. Even though he won't be able to do a tremendous amount of damage with it, on the left side of the lower base for Snute, it's kind of annoying if the tank gets dropped there. That's why I'm very happy to see Snute already working on those rocks. It is really important. Otherwise, Polt can set up a contain there and the tank can actually shoot at the drones from the low ground. And also, of course, we know that Polt loves to slow down the creep spread, which is something that's very important. Snute does pick up the Reaper over here, but yeah, the tank and the medevac will allow Polt to just have some sort of map presence, which is very important.
Yeah, and you know, this is also one of those builds for you Terran players out there. Opening with a tank and a medevac this fast is also great defensively. Even if Polt did scout something sort of crazy, you know, any type of fast baneling or a roach ravager type attack, a tank and a medevac can be microed to save his skin in a number of situations. So now he can turn that on the other side, go and get aggressive, and Polt followed up with a Viking too.
I must say, this was an extremely big supply block by Snute. Actually, now he frees up a little bit of supply because he ends up losing a couple of units. But he was supplied for quite a few seconds, then he had to wait, and then he was almost immediately supply blocked again. But yeah, I guess it turns out all right over here because he has to worry about this tank. It's unfortunate for Snute he wasn't able to completely destroy these rocks before the tank showed up. But I mean, the tank is not really doing all that much over here.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, both players are really powering up for that macro game. Polt, uncharacteristically from this tournament, getting that third command center up, and Snute going up to a lair, getting his evolution chambers, getting his extra gases. Really, the only interaction we're seeing here is Snute trying to break down these rocks and Polt trying to break down those queens.
Yep, we see double engineering bay going up for Polt as well, which means he's going to focus on upgrades. That is definitely doesn't have a crazy idea like he had in the previous game. This is much more straight up, much more normal. Tank is going to be dropped in the high ground over here. Might be able to pick up a couple of link kills. Surrounded by queens now, Polt has to be careful here, and he is careful, of course.
Yeah, losing that tank and that medevac is a pretty big investment when you consider the tank is mostly there to put pressure. Siege tanks, of course, will one-shot any constructing creep tumors. So if we look at the status of the creep spread, Snute hasn't been able to push it out too much since he also needed to keep his queens at those rocks to break them down.
Lots of drones in the way now for Snute, who was again supply block for a couple of seconds, but he has been injecting. He has plenty of
Polt
queens.
supply block now.
So I mean,
3 depots starting up.
Yes, it's not too bad.
Both of these players are basically, you know, they're trying to stress themselves to the maximum point in this game. I think that's what's really worth mentioning.
I mean, this one is a big one, though. Again, like, Snute already has 400 minerals in the bank, not a single Overlord on the way. He's just starting it now. I think these are signs of Snute being a tiny bit nervous.
There's a lot of pressure on both of these guys, and another Overlord does go down. So Polt moving across the map. He has Stim. 1-1 is on the way. Combat Shields is on the way. He's cleared out the Overlords with his Viking to scout these, and the Roach Warren with Roach Speed, the 1-1 for Snute isn't ready yet.
The Roach count is actually very low. If Polt would only know what we knew, I actually think he could just stim forward and he could do so much over here because it would just be a whole bunch of queens and 2 roaches. He's going to give Snute a little bit more time and a few more roaches will spawn soon. The roaches also morphed into Ravages, so now Snute is going to be fine. Polt is going to try to get this 4th base and he will force a cancel.
That's a great pickoff. Getting the drone 2 prevents Snute from taking that base, and another worker over, and Polt knows where he wants to apply pressure. If he can stay parked here with his medevacs and not lose these Marines and deny this 4th base again, he'll have a tremendous edge. He's transitioning into his armory. He's getting another factory to go double tank production, but Snute getting the infestation pit. He's ready to move, and I think Snute seems to favor the Roach Ravager Infester.
This is not good for Snute at all. Another cancel over here, a very easy one for Polt. Ravages being a little bit out of position, picked off a queen as well, now just gets out of there. Snute will be able to retake that base almost immediately, but this is just not nice. You don't want to attempt it twice. Snute's unit just being a little bit out of provision, and this all comes down to Polt already, like, making it hard for Snute to have eyes on the map.
I mean, from the very beginning of this game, Polt has been putting on so much pressure. It started with the Reaper, he got a drone kill, pushed the queens around, immediately followed it up with the siege tank drop, and then another tank came over, and then these 16 Marines to really add a lot more pressure.
I think there is a drop heading to the natural as well of Snute, of that pocket expand, and I think most of his units are over here right now as he's forcing it out. Actually, well done here by Snute. So far, he does keep an eye on it. I think the Overlord spotted it. It's important for Polt to use the good old Polt Viking that he has idling on the left top side to deny these Overlords, because that's vision that Snute does not deserve.
Yeah, still very important to keep the majority of his forces on the west side. Much like in Heart of the Swarm, that 4th base is still critical for the Zerg to get the economy they need to overwhelm a Terran. Polt has his 4th on the way too, so if he can stay on even bases, he's going to be having a hell of a good time.
Yeah, Snute didn't start his +2 army yet, as Funka is showing us as well. I mean, I must say I like this game so far by Polt, though. If you take a look at the units lost resource tab, I think that Snute has lost, oh my god, yes.
A lot
Snute
more.
has lost quite a bit more, and that's kind of how I feel as well. It's just all small pickoffs what Polt is doing. He's making it look easy, but he's actually playing very good.
Yeah, and Snute is about to have a lot more pressure coming in as more tanks arrive to lock down this position outside the 4th base, and this is where things are going to get real tricky. He wants to split some units off, but he also needs everything back home, and at the same time, he still has a medevac pressure on the right side.
Not a single bit of static defenses either in that pocket expand, makes it very hard. Snute is going to try to get a couple of spore crawlers, but he needs to use the roaches for now. I hope he's paying attention. One fungal could connect with most of these units. At the same time, a lot of units there. Snute is also trying to counterattack, kind of an odd counterattack, actually, that I don't think we'll be able to achieve a whole lot. He needs those units here. If he sandwiches this army, that could be good for Snute, but he needs to keep the hatchery alive.
And the 4th base is taking so much damage. Polt knocks it down, and Snute, capped at 200, is having a really rough time dealing with this. Those forces you mentioned on the southwest are making their way back north, but are they going to be in time? Is he going to be able to swallow this army?
I mean, he's setting it up right now. You can see him waiting, maybe waiting for +2. +2 is ready, and this is it. Snute's going to try to clean up this army of Polt, and if he creates for himself a very big... Oh, I love this, man. He's going to come from all angles at once. This is really good.
Yeah, complete surround. All the tanks are shooting where the least amount of units are, so the Ravagers come up. He's throwing the biles, but no fungals on the medevacs means he can continue to reposition and run back. Reinforcements from Polt are also hitting from the south at the same time. The Queen's caught off creep. Is Snute going to be able to hold this army up? He is dwindling in supply, but some of the medevacs still haven't dropped those siege tanks yet.
Yeah, the reinforcements have arrived for Polt, but a lot of the Marines are gone, though. All of those Queens being out of position did really hurt Snute a lot, and his army is actually starting to look smaller and smaller. Polt will be forced to pick off a couple of these tanks, and even though this may look like a Snute victory because Polt retreats, I don't think it is, and Snute is actually making 3 Swarmos right now.
Very interesting choice to be made. I guess that's one way to try to go for a harassment-based play, but it could also be that pressure getting to him a bit again.
I mean, sometimes you can be fooled when you watch a game of StarCraft. It's like, well, one player ran away. That must mean that the other guy won the fight, right? Well, that's not really the case. You look at the supplies. Polt is still up 40 supply. He has lost way less as well. He got out with the expensive units. He lost the cheap units. And he also had more units at home, while Snute truly fought with every single unit he had. So even though that looked okay for Snute, it wasn't okay at all.
And now the biggest problem, as Snute stretches himself out to take these bases, to rebuild that economy, Polt says, this is where I shine. Liberator harass going to the northeast. He has medevacs out on the map on the right side. He's got a Liberator in the northwest, getting his +3, getting his 4th base. He's on even economy with an army lead. Snute bringing this game back is going to be one hell of a task.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem for Snute is that he's just not going to have enough units. Look at the Swarmos! We haven't seen this unit once in the tournament, and that's why.
not the most longevity-based unit in terms of taking these long, protracted fights, as we do have that Liberator coming back over. And once again, the 4th base, point of contention, there's not even any drones here to mine. If he loses his hatch again, he'll never be able to catch up in economy with Polt.
No, but I mean, at the same time, he's not supposed to keep this one alive either. Polt just has too much. One of the fungals does connect, but Snute also lost 3 infestors there. We'll be able to pick up a couple of these units, but I don't know how he's going to break that, and I don't know how he's going to be able to keep this hatchery alive, but he truly has to. It's like a lose-lose. I think he really has to try to keep it alive. He's going to drop some corrosive balls. They got decent hits.
The biggest issue right now is he needs to secure the 4th, and once again, it will die. Polt, he can retreat if he wants, but he's got a Liberator with that Freedom Zone backing up the Siege Tank. And here's the biggest, I guess, tool that Snute's been able to use is the Greater Spire. But Polt, he's just got so much money. If he catches one whiff of this, he just throws out a few more Starports, and Vikings will clear out Broodlords easily.
Snute is going to try to counterattack again. Maybe no, he's going to set up another sandwich. This time he has to worry, but he has to take care of that Liberator. He's eating his own corrosive balls on the north side.
Yeah, I mean, he's still got to deal with the Liberator. He does pick that off as the corrosive balls hit nothing in the air, so Polt is routed for now. Polt, this is a key moment because he's building tanks. He's building 4 Marauders at a time. If you're Polt right now, it seems like he's thinking to himself, Ultralisk should be coming out soon. That is not the case in this game. Snute is getting Corruptors. His Greater Spire is almost done. The biggest disadvantage is that economy, but they brought it up before. If Snute can catch his opponent off guard with his tech choice, he might be able to overpower that the economic disparity.
He's pretty broke, though. I mean, he has a couple of Corruptors on the way, as Funk is showing us, but he doesn't have any Broodlords yet, I believe, and I still think it's going to be very hard for him. I think from now on, Snute only has one odd chance, and that's just be very passive, secure a fort base, get 5, 6, 7 Broodlords, and maybe at that point he can start thinking about attacking. Of course, he doesn't want to give Polt all the time in the world either, as Polt is just taking every single base.
He's just expanding non-stop.
I mean, if he saturates these bases for a little bit, Polt can throw down 3 starports and just make a ridiculous amount of Vikings. He already is adding his 2nd starport, so maybe he's expecting something.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart move, as well as going for building armor. He's locking down his expansions as this army's going to step forward. And, oh, the Biles hit his own Ravagers, too. So already still some sloppy trades here. Does get the Medivacs, though, but Polt, he just has so much on the map.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of these moments where even though your army composition may not be perfect against one of your opponent, if you're that much richer, you can just overwhelm him. You can just keep throwing units at him. For Polt, it is important that he does do something about that fort base, because if Snute has one very active, fresh mining base, anything is possible, especially with Broodlords and Infestors.
The Queen Harass Squad moves out of the map, but Polt is ready to attack this 4th once again. Now, the Broodlords have finished. He should have caught whiff of that.
Oh, the Queens are fighting on the right bottom side of the map. 4 Queens, 4 Kings, doesn't really matter. Well, these Queens are gone.
Yeah.
That's at the end of the hill.
Easy cleanup for Polt as he sieges the high ground here. Of course, the range of those Broodlords is tremendous, but will he have enough to clean the army up before he takes too much damage? Losing the 4th would be absolutely game-ending at this point.
I do think he's going to be able to keep this fort base alive. I mean, Broodlords is just so incredibly hard to push into. Polt throws out his cannon. Whoa!
Nice fungal, catches the Medivacs. 2-3 go down with the tanks in tow.
All right, so 4 Vikings are on the way at the same time. That's awesome for Polt, but I wouldn't even mind to see another starport go down. I think at this point 5 or 6 Vikings would definitely be better, especially because he has the money for it. But I mean, I guess for now he feels like this is going to be all right. Maybe counterattack a little bit. If Snute is going to be able to shut down 2 bases on the left side, that's definitely something that Snute could work with.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is Polt has that still amazing economic lead. Snute is pushing up with an army that is very powerful, but the Vikings...
No NTR?
There's nothing there except for the Infestors, and this isn't Wings of Liberty, Roddy.
Okay, I'm not sure about this move for Snute because he has no NTR.
He's going to try to move forward. The Biles do hit the army, but the Broodlords are being taken down by the Liberators and the Vikings pressing forward. There are 4 Broodlords left, just 3 now, and the army continues to advance. Snute's forces are crumbling. Polt clears house and will strike back across the map. I don't know that Snute has anything left to defend this with.
I mean, he has 75 army supplies somewhere, but it's mostly Roaches, a couple of Ravagers, a couple of Queens, and that's just not going to be enough against 3-3 stimmed bio, a couple of Liberators in the mix as well. There is even a Tor on the way. Why not? Polt is just showing off right now, Nate. He's just getting a little bit of everything.
Yeah, he locks it down with the Liberation zones in front of those siege tanks. You're not going to be able to charge into that on the ground. These Queens with the Ravagers are going to to do everything that they can, but the problem is Polt's bank. He's got money for days, and this is the last healthy base. This is the only base that Snute is mining off of right now. More corrosive piles will be thrown, but as soon as he steps forward, those tanks, those liberators spread freedom all across Snute's army.
What a massive overextension that was on the bottom side, as Polt is gonna go forward one more time. Snute is really hanging in there like a champ, but he knows he can defend this.
GG. Polt ties the series up 1-1. A nice start here to this grand final.
I mean, this was a game that Polt was winning for a while. We said it, so it's not like surprising that Polt did win it in the end. But at a certain point, when he secured the fourth base and he had Brooklords out, I started to believe a tiny bit. I mean, I know he was incredibly far behind because Polt was on 6-7 bases, double starport, and he definitely had money in the bank. But we all know how quickly a bank can disappear. I mean, Vikings and Liberators and Medevacs are not cheap units. No. If you end up losing them once, things can get a little bit tricky. But Snute is really overextending in the bottom side. He had just no anti-air at all there.
I think the smartest thing that Polt did in that game was realizing that as hard as it might be for him to actually break Snute in that mid-game when he took that lead that you pointed out, he just took expansions everywhere. He knows, Snute, if you're trying to defend against my army, you're less likely to have forces you can send across the map or at least scout the corners of the map. So Polt was up something like 6-7 bases just versus just those pretty much 3.5 all game for Snute.
I mean, this has to feel good for Polt, as I think Orbital was considered to be a very straight-up fair map. I mean, I think it's all right for Terran. It can be tricky for Zerg because you have to worry about the rocks, and fourth base is not super easy to secure, but it's always nice to win on Orbital because it's one of the more normal maps out there. This is a best of 7, which means we play every single map. If it goes to distance, of course, that is. The next map is already going to be interesting. It will be Pryan Terraces, and I think that's where things already get a little more crazy.
Yeah, I mean, statistically, this map has been really good for aggressive Zerg styles. You can pump out a lot of roaches with the gold bases that you get. We've seen players pretty much ignore the blue mineral expansions to the most part if they can. So this is just one of those scenarios where if Snute wants to try for that roach ravager style, he could be maybe a bit more aggressive with it off the back of that gold economy. And we already saw Polt take an interesting approach to this map against Nurchio, where he says, I'm just going to go command center first, start mining off that gold as fast as I can, and then attack you even without medevacs.
I mean, that was an awesome build by Polt that definitely caught Nurcho off guard, but that's also a build you can only do once, you know? Like, Snute saw that series, obviously, and he's ready, and he's thinking about it. He's like, all right, if you're going to do that, I make damn sure that I've got a Roach Warren early enough that I can actually deal with that attack. And if a type of attack like that fails, I mean, you're incredibly far behind as a Terran player. You're going to have a hard time. You're going to give so much free space to your opponent to just do whatever they want, you know, spread creep, take multiple bases, as you have to wait for your medevacs, which is just going to take a very long time. So we'll see.
It's tied 1-1 here at the Grand Finals for the WCS Winter Championship at the Intel Extreme Masters. Spawning in the bottom right position as the red Terran player. Give it up for Polt!
And on the top side of Pryan Terraces, we're looking at the main base of our Norwegian Zerg player. He's looking for his first WCS championship ever. It is Snute.
So Pryan Terraces, it's been an interesting map. We've seen it develop and change since the release of Legacy of the Void. Most notably, it recently became the first ever map where you have that gold base in your natural. Mining that as fast as possible is of utmost importance. And Polt, once again on this map, is going to follow with that command center first. He wants that gold money and he wants it now.
Who doesn't, Nate? Who doesn't? Yeah, I love that you bring that up, because obviously it didn't used to be like this, that the natural was the goal, but a lot of people were not too happy with the way that this map played out. So then, you know, the map makes it, all right, we'll switch it up, and people are like, cool, you know, that should make it a little more fair. But it's actually very unique, because we've been playing competitive StarCraft 2 since 2010, but never in the history of this game.
This is the first map ever
that your natural was actually a gold. So that's, you know, it's really weird. And it messes up a lot of the build orders. I mean, obviously you can say like, well, more money is awesome, right? Well, yeah, but normally your builds are so sharp that when you suddenly get all these extra minerals, but you still work with the same amount of gas, it throws off everything. So it makes for very unique games.
It makes things pretty weird. So we'll have to see, especially since the gold minerals do mine out faster, and that is going to cause you to need to expand more quickly, since your natural will be gone very fast, and obviously with the less resources, your main mine's out by the time you're taking that third or fourth base. So on this map, Polt going for a pretty interesting build. This isn't something you really see too much of. You go for command center first, 2 barracks, but then 2 really fast gas. Not setting up on 3 racks, but getting the quick bunker. He's kind of checking all the possible things that could happen to him, whereas Snute is open with a super standard build. The hatch first with Zergling speed, nothing unusual on his side.
Did Snute even scout once? No, right?
Just the overlords that are going to be looking to get information for him, but
I mean, I guess the fact that he didn't see a Reaper already tells him enough.
Yeah, but normally in a Terran versus Zerg, if you open up with a regular 14 racks Reaper, that Reaper is going to be arriving at your base around the same time that your Queen is finishing, sometimes a little bit before, maybe just barely after. But Snute would already know this is not a Reaper opening just based on the lack of that Reaper coming to his base.
You know, when I do see Polt open up with 2 racks or even 3 racks, you know, it's 1 tech lab and it's a reactor as well. We do see the factory as a follow-up. No, wait, 1 more Rex go. Whoa.
Yeah, okay, he starts the 3rd one.
Hey, I mean, this reminds me of Polt at Lone Star Clash, you know, once upon a time, which was maybe my favorite series of all time. When Polt went up against Stefano, it was nothing but Ling Roach versus Hellions, and then eventually like Marines and Marauders. So much micro, so much focus fire, which I think was extremely cool. Now, obviously for Polt this time, if he does something similar to what he did to Nurcho, it is very important for Snute that he has his Roach Warren on time.
And I think just this opening with Hellions, it's a little bit ambiguous still. Depends on if we see that starport. The lack of it will say a lot. But going with these Hellions, Roaches are great against those. I'm expecting him to drop an armory with this if he does want to attack and get aggressive. I mean, he's got the 3rd barracks. He's starting to build Marauders very early on without really knowing what Snute's up to. This is already saying, I want to be the assertive one. I want to be the one to take charge, take the lead in this game with my aggression.
Awesome, man. Ling Roach against Hellion Bio. Well, why not? The Roach one is already almost done, and that is incredibly important. Snute is also throwing up 2 Spore Crawlers, and that is something that kind of surprised me a little bit. So he's misreading the situation. He's worried about potential Liberator res, or even in a bizarre world, could be Cloaked Banshee. But Snute, you don't have to worry about any of that at all. What you have to worry about is bio units with Stim and Hellions, basically the exact same thing that Polt did roughly an hour and a half ago.
And once again, just like on Laralac Crest, this is a 2-base commitment. There's not much of a follow-up to this if the attack gets completely shut down without doing critical damage to Snute's economy or infrastructure.
Armory is going to go down. Snute is making 8 more drones, but I really hope after that he's going to stop with those drones, and he needs those Roaches and lots of Ravages as well.
He needs non-stop Roaches right now, Roddy. That is going to be the key to holding this. Ravagers are great with their range, especially against Marines in the early game, but
another one.
3rd Spore, it's a weirdly defensive build, but it's not strongly committed in any one way. The lack of information is really hurting Snute right now.
Yep, I kind of expected him to see it. He doesn't see these moving units move out. He has a Ling, but oh my god.
He might just die to this. He's still building
making drones.
He's adding another Queen. He doesn't have the number of Roaches that he needs to stop an attack like this. How many are there on the map?
Not that many.
3?
And 3 Ravages, a couple Queens as well. Snute just needs to buy as much time as possible. He needs to squeeze out as many units as possible. He's making 5 Overlords. Obviously, he panicked a little bit there. Queens are off creep. This is going to be an incredibly difficult hold for Snute.
And the Terran player has Stim and combat shields. Ravager shots are going to try to push this army back, but this is such a tough spot. Snute is going to have to try to barely hold on. He's got 8 more Roaches on the way, but these Marines are going to Stim right up the map. Bile does hit across the army, but there's just not that much here to actually fight against this. These Roaches are going to finish up separated. They're going to start out divided, and then will end with conquered.
Oh, Polt forgot about a couple of units over here. Snute needs to hang on there. He has 9-10 Roaches on the way. I do love that 1 Hellbat that Polt is splitting up there, working on the drones. It's very well done. Can Snute somehow, some way muster out a defense? He's surrounding a Hellbat with drones. Normally not a good idea, but this time they do take it out. But I think there are just too many bio units being rallied across the map. Polt doing the exact same build as he did 2 hours ago, and he makes it work again.
I mean, perhaps Snute just thought there's no way he'd do this twice, but Polt seems to have a pretty good grasp on this. The way he set himself up was beautiful. Most of these units are so low since there were no medevacs, but Polt has already done the damage that he needs to. He's cleared out the 3rd. The natural is still somehow mining, just barely, but Snute's lost his Queens. He can't inject, and honestly, he doesn't have the upgrades he needs to deal with stimmed bio at all.
Nope, Snute definitely misread this, man. All the Spore Crawlers, just making a few too many drones, not having the Roaches ready. Queens perhaps a tiny bit out of position. He's gonna try to hang in there one more time. 1 Ravager does finish it. Oh, Corrosive Ball will connect with the Marauder, but that's about it. 88 supply against 60, and Snute also has more workers, which means that he just doesn't really have any units to fight with whatsoever.
Yeah, all those workers, not enough. Just needed to read this one a little bit better. GG, Polt goes up 2-1.
I'm surprised by this game, Nate. I'm very, very surprised. We just saw Polt do this build. It's not a common build anymore. You know, once upon a time it was, but that's when the maps were very small and you could really get away with aggression like this, and it all came down to micro. These days, of course, there is a gold base, so he does have a few more units, and Prion is not the largest map out there, but it's still one of these builds that if your opponent sniffs it out or scouts it somehow, some way, it is very manageable to defend it.
Yeah.
And then you're in a phenomenal position because you're a 3-base Zerg against a 2-base Terran that has very, very, very late medevac. So basically you're winning the game already.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is to just anticipate this in some way. Not sending in the Overlord like you mentioned, denies himself the information that he needs to hold on to this. And even just sending a 1 or 2 lings across the map, you see that bunker, you recognize my opponent went command center first, and that alone should tell you, okay, maybe this might actually be the same build, and then you at least think about it.
Yep. I mean, you gotta give credit where credit is due, and you know, how many times don't we see one player run around with a couple of lings, and then the Hellions leave, and then somehow a link squeezes by and runs up the ramp, you know, because the depot wasn't raised in time, and it's like, oh, this is massive for the Zerg, you know, he just scouted it. Polt always makes sure that he doesn't make those tiny mistakes that are actually very big mistakes, you know. That one ling running by wouldn't do a lot of damage, but would give Snute all the information he desires, and by Polt just doing such a good job and always raising those depots, making sure that nothing squeezes by, he keeps his opponent in the dark, and I mean, that's a pretty big deal in StarCraft.
Yeah, that was all he needed to do. So Polt takes a 2-1 lead in this best-of-7 grand finals. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a short commercial break. When we return, we're going to continue on. You're watching the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice Grand Final.
If your PC is dated and tests your nerves more than your skills, is it time for a new one? Get the Intel Extreme Masters Limited Edition PC, built with the same components that the pros play on at the Intel Extreme Masters. Money from every certified PC board goes to the Intel Extreme Masters prize purse. Only in the best stores in your region. They come with a certificate and a unique holographic sticker. Play like the best and support esports with the new limited edition Intel Extreme Masters PCs, based on Intel Core processors.
Exclusive black equalizer brightens dark scenes without overexposing bright areas. Use the S switch to quickly access the setting and switch between save modes. Adjust the angle effortlessly for maximum comfort.
G2A.com, the best video game store ever! Fast as lightning, solid as a rock, cheap as duck. What's more, you can sell on it because it's also a marketplace. Remember G2A.com, the best video game store ever!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. We are going into game number 4 of the WCS Winter Championship as Polt leads 2-1 over the Norwegian Zerg player Liquid Snute.
And there's no other way to put it than that Polt has been pretty cheeky so far. In game number 1, double factory, tried mass heli and didn't really work. Game number 3 made a very quick bio attack with a bunch of bio units, stim, and a couple of Hellions out there as well with no turret CC inside. So I'm surprised by the Polt we're seeing so far, especially considering the fact that the crazy maps are just beginning.
That's right, we're on Central Protocol to move forward with map number 4, spawning in the top left position. We have the red Terran player leading 2-1, he's Polt!
Gotta love how calm and composed he still is, despite the fact that it wasn't an ideal start to this best of 7. Either way, over here on the right bottom side, we're looking at the main base of our Norwegian Zerg player. Give it up for Snute.
Still looking pretty calm himself, Roddy, and I think that's one of the biggest obstacles that has hit a lot of these players, particularly Snute, where those nerves can really get to you, but he has to stay calm if he wants to bring this series back. With this amazingly large crowd in front of him, victory would be oh so sweet.
Yep, and we said it a little bit in the start here. These maps are a little bit crazy. Look at this opening over here as well by Polt. He didn't do it before, Nate, because he said he doesn't like to do this very often, but talk to me.
I mean, Polt's just been playing a little bit on the aggressive side this tournament in particular. We've already seen a bit of cheese earlier, but on this map, were this to have been horizontal spawns, yep, I think this would be almost one of the strongest builds that you can do in the game against Zerg. 3 Rax Reaper has really made a return in Legacy of the Void simply because that grenade the Reaper can throw has a huge amount of damage, a great area of effect that it can hit against Zerglings, Queens, drones, but also a short cooldown. And on this map, your main base has a tremendously large cliff. Protecting your borders is more difficult than ever on Central Protocol.
Now I understand why it's good, but what I do not really understand is that Polt didn't use it before, despite the fact that he played multiple games so far on Central Protocol. But like for instance against Nurcho, he did not open 3 Rax Reaper. What do you think is the thought process behind this?
I mean, at this point, I think Polt's just recognizing that his aggression has been working reasonably well, but also that Snute hasn't been rushing out those roaches. So if he only builds a few lings and doesn't expect this, because as you said, we haven't really seen it as much, he could really blindside him. Reapers are units of momentum. If you lose your first one or one of your first 3, it's almost impossible to make it work. But if you kill a couple Lings, you pull your Reaper back and regenerate the health, and you move forward, you just repeat this process. And because Reapers are expensive, it takes so long to build, as long as you don't lose them, they are incredibly hard to stop as you get closer to 8 or 9 of them.
Needless to say, the fact that this is cross-map makes it a lot easier for Snute to eventually stabilize one drone a little bit out of position. This Queen, no, what are you doing? You saw that? That Queen never liked that drone to begin with, Nate.
Yeah, prevented her friend from escaping. And at this point, man, this is going to be really tricky. So Snute already wants to move some Lings out. This is really strange because Polt has blocked off his natural with his 2 barracks and his depot. You're not going to counterattack against this. The ideal move to make is to try and get the surround on those Reapers with your Zerglings. We can see the micro so good, picks off a Queen. 1 Reaper does die, but at this point, 2 Queens down, and with the Lings out on the map, I mean, Snute doesn't have anything to defend this.
I mean, Polt doesn't know that these Lings are on the other side of the map. If he would have known, he could have just dived onto the drones. No, Snute, there is a wall off. You can't go in there just yet.
I mean, SCVs have to go very far to come repair this depot, so he might be able to break it down if Polt doesn't react in time.
He needs to react very well. Actually, no, Snute's going to give it up. He's going to bring the Lings back. At least he forces these Reapers to turn around for now, but he gave Polt a lot of time there. 2 Reapers are behind the wall now, and it's safe to say that Snute is not going to be able to break this.
I mean,
surround one.
I mean, part of the thought process behind this has to be, of course, grabbing any Reapers here are really nice, but these Lings will not win that fight. The whole point is pull these Reapers back.
Well, what about these Lings then, though? What about these Lings?
It's going to be hard to get this round, but if he can, he's got them on both sides. Those grenades are so good, but he gets all the Reapers.
Wow.
Snute cleans up the majority of the forces. Just a handful of these Reapers left, and he's going to get just 1, 2 more. He gets both of them. A last one does pop out, but this is going to force Polt to sit back at home. He hasn't started a factory. He hasn't started a tech lab. He hasn't started a 3rd command center. So all he has is a little bit of Reapers, but now Snute can comfortably drone up, maybe even go straight into Roaches and Ravagers if he wants, because the tech follow-up is so delayed.
That was super awesome by Snute. A little bit risky for sure early on. Now the Lings are going to work on these add-ons, and he might actually be able to get one of them. Yes, he does.
Oh, he also gets inside. He can move in. A fresh mule ready to be sniped. These SCVs are going to come off the line to fight against him, so Snute already causing some disruption. And I'll tell you what, building your add-ons there is really risky to do. He doesn't want to float the barracks back into his main base because he wants units, but these are going to be big targets if Snute wants to pressure the front.
I mean, Snute is in a lovely position now. He's up 7 workers. He reduced the Reaper count drastically. It was still, I think, a very risky call early on with those Lings. When you create chaos for your opponent on the other side of the map, that's really annoying because you want to focus on your Reapers. But after Polt took out those Queens, I really think if he would have known the Lings were not there, he could have killed all the drones.
I mean, all you need to do is pull a couple of more of your SCVs, repair that wall, and send your 8 Reapers into his main. It's going to wreck any Queens that pop out. But now Polt, he's going to run around a little bit, but this is not that tremendously threatening number of Reapers that he had earlier.
And these Reapers are actually in a lot of trouble as well. 1 Reaper gets picked off immediately. Even the 2nd Reaper goes down. So it's safe to say that the Reaper phase has ended in this game.
Oh, yeah.
Snute is supply. Well, actually, he was supply block, not anymore. 9 Reapers going down for 28 Lings. That may look like, wow, 28 Lings, that's a lot right now. For 9 Reapers, that's a very good trade.
When you consider what Snute lost, it was some minerals, but Polt lost a lot of gas. That's tech. Look, Snute's already getting his infestation pit. I mean, it's a bit adventurous as his 3rd base is only just completed, but Polt, his stim is coming in. I think the biggest mistake that Snute could make is to be, too greedy here, as we do see once again Polt is not building a 3rd command center. He's on 5 racks on 2 bases with no gases on his natural. He wants to build Marines, Marauders, and with the lack of a factory, nothing else.
I would love to see Snute just focus on economy for a little bit, try to get something very stable, steady going, even though these are 7 Rexes, by the way.
He needs just Roaches and Ravagers. There's no factory. This is about as all-in as you're going to get.
Wow.
A follow-up to this would be so late, since he hasn't taken any other gases either. This is really scary. Yeah, these infestors won't pop with enough energy for fungal growth either.
It's very important that Snute actually identifies this as quick as possible. For a second, I thought that it was going to take a little bit longer, but with 7 Rexes as a follow-up, I mean, Polt wants to make something happen now. I think even just taking out that 3rd base, I'm not even sure if that's enough. Snute is supply blocked again. This is kind of an ugly moment to be supply blocked. He still has to wait 15 seconds before he can produce additional units. Now, cross-map parade pushing is not super effective, but Polt's army, with the upgrade, with Stim and Combat Shield, is definitely stronger than Snute's army at the moment.
Especially without Medivacs, fungal growth is going to be so important, but these infestors do not spawn with the energy that they need for it. Snute needs a lot more time to get that up. He's going to lose this. He should lose this base. If Polt doesn't kill this 3rd in the next minute or 2 and Snute's allowed to keep mining off of it, that's going to really open it up for him to bring this back, but Snute also needs to be patient because the stim is going to come in. There's no medevacs to heal. He pushes back, kills the third base. The bio is on the run, but you want to wait for that stim to wear off. The units cannot be healed.
Yep, there will be one Fungo available anytime soon. A couple of these Ravages are very exposed now. Snute was in a phenomenal position, but he's taking a lot of damage, even though the HP of the army of Polt is dropping rapidly. Another stim goes down, but Snute has lost most of his units.
Yeah, I mean, these Marines and Marauders are so weak, but there's so many of them. He gets all the Infestors, he's killed the Ravagers, he's killing the Overlords, and now Polt making his way into the natural expansion of Snute. It seems Snute's just been blindsided yet again with how weak these units are. I mean, he's got to pull everything if he wants to defend this. Their drones do come off of the line. These Marines and Marauders are very weak. The Roaches are going to come up. He's cleaning up a lot of this, but Polt has the supply lead, still building 7 Marines, 3 Marauders at a time, and laying waste to this Roaches.
Few more Roaches coming in from the north side. I mean, once again, there are no medevacs. There is no starport here. Normally, this looks terrible for the Zerg, but without a starport, maybe Snute can trade. I kind of feel that Snute is overextending maybe a tiny bit here, but he is picking up a lot of these Marauders.
Yeah, he needs to push this back as much as he possibly can. There is no follow-up for Polt. He has finished his +1 attack. He's getting his first armor upgrade, but there's still no factory. There's still no starport, no armory, no further upgrades, no nothing.
I mean, Snute is only at 57 supply. He must have lost, I mean, he actually still has quite a few drones. He just has no units. Polt has a lot of units, but a lot of those units are in production as well, or are making their way across the map. When it comes to units that are right here to fight, he actually doesn't really have all that many. Polt probably needs to just relax for a little bit, wait for more units to stream across the map, and then go in for that final blow. There is still no factory, so that means that Polt is still extremely committed to this, but it's looking really good for Polt.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to step up once more. The drones coming off the line. Corrosive about trying to bait in. Oh, whoa, nice shot on those Marines. But as the drones die, that's going to slow down Snute's ability to build more forces to defend this.
I mean, there's no high ground vision, so that could be very tricky. Polt really wants to have high ground vision. Now he's going to have it again. But he's losing a lot of units. Supply still in favor of Polt. But once again, when you have 7 Rexes, supply counts are a tiny bit deceiving because all of that supply is on the way. Main base, as Funka showing us, is running low. And even at natural is going to start running low. Polt needs to end this game quite quickly, though.
Yeah, the most important thing you mentioned is that high ground vision, but he's going to come up once again. I love this. Put the bios where the high ground vision is going to be obtained and use that to bully these forces away. Polt can't micro. He can't kite this. And Snute is pushing him back. He has the 1-1 for the Roach Ravager, which is also super important. Polt, realizing he can't win like this, does start the factory at last.
Yep, and he could even throw down maybe a command set as well. Now he's just going to go for more units. Another stim forward. A couple of Queens over here. There are 1 or 2 Roaches, a couple of Ravagers. So far, this actually looks like a pretty damn good engagement for Polt. He has to dodge those balls, and he does.
Yeah, he's picked off most of the Ravagers. Just a single one remains. The drones are pulled once again, but the last Roach does die. 2 more come from the north, but the last Ravager as well might also fall. The drones are going to come in for the save. He does barely push this back, but there's more and more Marines and Marauders. An endless stream of red making its way east across the map.
Well, just when Snute's army started to look a little bit more healthy with multiple Queens that had quite a bit of energy and a couple of Ravagers, Polt just stepped forward one more time. Had no idea what was waiting for him on the high ground, but his army was actually strong enough. He's going to be able to deny the 3rd hatchery from Snute one more time, or just pick it off completely, actually.
The advantage of Terran, you know, at this point, you mine out that main, you don't need to build a 3rd, just float it over, and he has access now to more resources than Snute does. Snute's main is mining out. We have a starport coming in, so medevacs are going to join. I think Polt has done what he needed to do with this build.
This is such a bizarre build by Polt. You know, he opens up 3 Rex Reaper and then just throws down 4 more Rexes. 7 Rex of Marines and Marauders just rallying it across the map. Super old school StarCraft that we're seeing out of here of Polt. I mean, I think he's been looking at some of his old VODs. He's like, that's how I used to win games, right? Well, let's try it again.
And I think the biggest issue right now is that Snute just does not have access to the same number of resources. He needs to somehow win a convincing fight against this army and then immediately shut down the economy. Polt's floating his natural too.
He floated his natural as well to the 9 o'clock position. So Polt is going to have 2 very healthy bases to mine from, while Snute is working off 2 bases that are starting to run super dry.
And the thing is, Polt recognizes that with this massive amount of bio and with the economy being crippled for Snute, he doesn't actually need to attack Snute anymore. He can just sit here and chill. While Polt's just like, yep, I've got all the money I need right now. I'm still going to build more, just floating all over the place.
Most importantly, he's got Medevacs on the way, and that's going to make his army 300 times stronger. I mean, this is definitely a very tough game for Snute. He had such a great start against all these Reapers while he's going to try to engage this bio. I mean, right now, maybe there's a small chance he would win the fight, but even that I kind of doubt if Polt dodges the biles. But I mean, Snute had a great start against the Reapers. It's just a follow-up that he didn't see. He did not expect a 7 Rex as a follow-up, and I can't really blame him for it. I mean, cross-map, I wouldn't really see it coming either.
Yeah, Polt's going to go in for one more big stim on top of this army. The Roaches and the Ravagers doing everything that they can, but the Vials are not going to be enough. Polt has broken Snute once again. GG, going 3-1 now with a single map between him and the first WCS circuit title of the year.
He just keeps on doing it. Polt in an absolutely phenomenal position now. He only has to win 1 out of the next 3 maps that's going to be played on first Arena and then Runes or Dusk if those last 2 are even necessary. I mean, it's crazy because this start was not good for him on Central. Things were really not going his way, but he just turns it around.
He's done a great job of blindsiding his Zerg opponents this tournament with a bit of flair we have not seen out of Polt. He's gone 3 racks against Lambo. We saw him do that massive Marine Marauder Hellion attack, but he is just really shaking it up. A good way for Polt to take control of this series. Let's hear what Apollo and the boys at the desk have to say about this match so far.
Thank you very much, Nathanius. Polt lost the first game, and then he turned it around and has continued to perform in every single map so far. He's currently 1 game away from the trophy, 1 game away from the title. But let's break this down a little bit now, as the players do have a couple of minutes break before we get into the next map. What went better, I suppose, for Polt, or should I say what went wrong for Snute?
I don't think Snute really studied Polt enough for this, even though the games were just before. Polt is opening up with the same builds on the same maps. He copied Marine Lord's 3 racks Reaper in a series against Firecake, I believe. Yes, the follow-up was different, but it was still a 2-base 5 racks aggression. It just had tanks instead. So that was a one-off. Like, Snute cannot be blamed for that one. But that being said, where was the Overseer in the main base? He had no idea what was coming. You pointed that out. Also, the gold base map, Prion Terraces, the exact same opening that he did against Nurture, and Snute just didn't seem to be ready for it. So this just seems like Snute's kind of buckling under the pressure here.
I mean, looking down onto the arena right now, TLO is inside the booth of Snute, and obviously watching the games and being able to break it down just as well as you can. What do you think TLO is probably saying to him in there?
Probably a lot of the same kind of stuff. Like when it comes to actual army engagements and kind of the mechanics of the game, I think Snute's holding his own and doing great. Like that last game, he was behind from the get-go. I mean, we got a shot of the base, 2 evolution chambers completely unused. Infestors that were just dead weight. They got a single fungal off, I think, and then overall was just bad. And still, he made it a close game. But I have to agree with the Muslim. Like, it's just been, in each game, it seems like his information, his reads have just been absolutely off. And it's kind of crazy, because to give credit where credit's due, it's also Polt, who, yes, is doing builds that he's done previously, but kind of what he's always done has always been the same kind of stuff. It's been kind of mono build kind of guy. Not this series, not this tournament, really. He's showing that he will all in, he will do different things. And I think that's cool. And Snute, too, his 1 game of success is when he dictated the pace, when he caught Polt off guard. And I wonder if he should return to some kind of concept like that.
Valdez, what are your thoughts here on this series, the way it's been playing out?
Yeah, I mean, Snute definitely having a bit of trouble there. He knocked down that build, but it was kind of a strange one, to be honest, the one that Polt threw out on him on that map, the double reactor factor. We haven't seen that in so long, but I really want to echo the idea that Polt is definitely a player that he is not scared. You were talking about he's kind of a monotype. He just plays a standard game. But once you get into the big series, you get into the semifinals and the finals, he is not scared to throw out some of these big builds, these all-ins out of nowhere to really catch Snute off guard. And the thing about Snute not really knowing these builds, I mean, he was practicing only ZvZ. I wouldn't even blame him if he missed it. I think it would be up to maybe some of his teammates or someone else to give him the information, or maybe just to go back and watch the VODs. But yeah, just definitely not responding too well to the builds that Polt has already done.
Well, Polt, I think it's safe to say we know him all quite well. In this last choice, or last map, sorry, that he has, and he will have this lap map for a couple of games in a row here where he's 1 game away from winning it. He's going to mix it up. He's going to throw absolutely everything and almost completely be unpredictable for Snute. So for Snute now, how do you regain confidence and bring this series back to a winnable or equal position?
If I was Snute, I'd look at the maps and write down or even just know exactly what he's done, because it's very likely it's going to happen again in some kind of quirky way. Polt, on the other hand, like he now knows his opponent. He tried that game where he went double factory Hellion, 4 at a time, and he ran into Roaches. Snute goes Roach Ravager every game. It's making him kind of predictable. He's open to some timings, which we've seen now.
Yeah.
Snute just needs to be really careful.
Well, the next map's going to be Arena. So Snute has stepped away from the booth right now. He's not even in there. He's gone to use the bathroom. He's gone to take a couple of moments. What's going through his head? He knows he's about to play Polt on this small, 2-player, close position map.
He's going to pray that Polt doesn't go 3 racks in the middle of the map. That's what he's going to be praying, and that's what he's going to be really nervous about. Snute's had a lot of trouble with that in the very recent past. But honestly, if Snute gets that information, and when you go Roach Ravager, you always get the lair because you need the speed upgrade for your Roaches. Why doesn't he just spend the upgrade, get an Overseer, and really know what he's going to do? It's a 50-50 upgrade. If there's one thing in Snute's play that I'd changed so far, it's that.
I mean, Arena is obviously the immediate threat, but I think when you're down 1-3 in a series like this, he needs to... It was cool because we saw him kind of do this even at the tail end of the last series. Just mentally calm yourself down and take it 1 game at a time. Like, he's infinitely behind. Polt's not going to get nervous, so he can't rely on Polt to be making mistakes right now. And it just in his head, he has to be saying, okay, I'm in a tough spot, but I can actually beat Polt in a best of 1 3 times in a row, granted, but still, I can do that. And if he can get himself in the right spot, and a couple of adjustments like we were talking about, that's why this break's actually kind of nice, and it's nice that he has a guy like TLO to help him out. Snute is a guy that can do this. He can win these games. He's making mistakes that he typically does not make, and it'd be nice if he, took that deep breath, calmed himself down, and came back, the Snute that got him here.
Yeah, and Jeff was talking about taking it 1 game at a time. Arena, I actually do like this for Snute. He played a fantastic game on this map against Major. He played that style where he was just defending, waiting for it. Zerga's got a lot of interesting options on this map as well. You can try to go for drops, try to drop the tanks. It's like, I feel like there's a lot of options here for Snute, and I feel like if he can take this one, it's a good map to take back control of the series, because Arena's a funky map, and Polt can definitely get a little bit off if he loses this one. So I think Snute's got a decent shot here at this map.
I tell you what though, Polt, when playing against Snute, the fact that he has decided, oh, I'm going to mix up against this guy, what a move to make against Snute, because Snute doesn't seem comfortable against all these things that have been thrown at him. Getting to the late game, that's what Snute wants to do. In all those matches against Major, Major was throwing this, that at him, but it was all standard stuff, and Snute, he'd hang on. But once he got to that late game, and Polt's just said, I'm not going to let that happen. So really, really smart play by him.
Amazing by Polt.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. We're going to go back to the commentary team now, as it seems like the players are almost ready to continue the grand finals. Let's go back.
Thank you very much for breaking it down for us, boys. We do have quite a hill to climb for Snute to bring it back, but he's back in his booth, Roddy. I'm sure he's taking just a breather, get himself ready to go. He has a long way to bring this series to even.
Yep, maybe some words with TLO could have definitely helped him. Dario, definitely a player who knows how to deal with crazy. I mean, he's very creative himself.
Oh, yeah.
And so far, I think it's safe to say that Polt is playing pretty creative. These are builds that we have not seen in a long time.
Yeah, that's like saying, he's like, Polt went for this tournament. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to pull out my old playbook from 2011, 2012. You were just saying it. But we have to find out, can he close it out in the northwest position of Arena? We have Polt.
And this man on the left bottom side of Arena has to win 3 maps in a row to win his first WCS championship. He's going to need your support. Give it up for Snute.
The crowd is lending its energy. The viewers at home are lending their energy to Snute, but he just has so far to go. This was the map where Polt went for a very aggressive, gasless 3 racks, all in basically, against Lambo earlier. It is the map where Firecake was able to go for that cheeky Ling drop. So Arena is a map where most of the crazy stuff tends to happen.
I mean, to put things in perspective so far, Polt has dropped 3 maps throughout the entire tournament. Now Snute needs to win 3 in a row. It would be a legendary comeback, to say the least. Of course, a lot of money on the line as well for the people who just joined us. $15,000 for the runner-up. So that's what both these guys have already secured themselves. But if you win the Winter Championships, you'll walk away with $35,000. And that's a whole lot of money, Nate.
Yeah, there is a lot at stake here at the Winter Championships, and it has just made it, you know, it's one of the things that just makes it so prestigious. You know, you get the money, you get the spot at the WCS Global Playoffs at the end of the year, and that allows you, you can get rid of the stress of saying, I need to qualify. You're like, no, I don't need the points anymore. I just need to be good when that time comes.
All right, this is already getting interesting. This Overlord made his way past Polt's base. Everything looks standard, right? 1 Rex and then, you know, command center. But wait a minute, Nate, 2 more Rex go down immediately. And it's unlikely after this Overlord already ate quite a few bullets. I love how Funka's showing it as well, that it's going to hop in again. And if Snute does not pick up on this, this good. Oh my God, it's another one.
We've already been talking about this.
And another one.
Oh boy.
Just keep on going.
Polt's just stacking racks on racks on racks this series, man. So many heavy bio plays. And it seems like a lot of the Zerg plays have been setting up to deal with either Liberators or Drops or Banshees or Hellions or Hellbats or what have you, but it's just going to be raw power in this game from Polt.
Hey, the depots are raised, by the way. If all of these links go up the ramp, maybe one link could squeeze by. I mean, Polt has to be careful. You want to hide this. He's going to lose 2 SCVs immediately. Polt, you can't save these SCVs because you don't want to reveal what you're doing. If these links run by,
I mean, he just needs to know. And I mean, you see this many Marines. He's building quite a few. It's very hard to tell at this point, but the Roach Warren is on the way.
Yep.
Honestly, Snute just needs to crank out forces, and yes, just get the Roaches. A couple of Ravagers can hold this, especially gasless. Like, there's not going to be stim. There's no combat shields. There's no Marauders to support. Pure Roaches will wreck this.
This time, Snute didn't see everything what he needed to see, but he makes the correct call. 9 Roaches on the way. I mean, especially if Polt wants to really attack with all of his Marines, he has to run up the ramp. Maybe Snute wants to attack, but I do not recommend him attacking because, you know, his opponent has no gas whatsoever, still completely gasless. I'm not sure if Snute actually knows. I think Snute just wants to attack. But I think as soon as he retreats, he should be fine. He shouldn't attack on the other side of the map, though, because Polt is going to have a ridiculous amount of Marines.
Just like in game number 1, Snute opens up with this aggressive posture, and it can actually work really well because Polt only has 4 of his Marines at the front. So these Marines should die very quickly. The most important thing is you got to keep the Ravager safe.
Surprise!
And now the rest of the Marines can die. It's like, I've been had. But the Marines step forward. They get the first Ravager. These Roaches are so tanky, though, and Snute has so many of them. Pure Marines have a rough time with this. SCV's coming off the line, but we got Zerglings to help deal with those. At the same time, Snute is breaking down the defense here of Polt. He's knocked down a lot of the natural economy. He has more Roaches he can fall back on as well, and he's completely destroyed the army of the Terran player.
Yep, this is already good enough for Snute. He may not win the game. Whoa, were those rally points messed up? Because that's a whole lot of Marines. I mean, I know he has 7 Rexes, but still, I really think if Polt would have had those Marines down there a little bit quicker, because let's not forget, he was hiding the Marines.
You're building 5 at a time, and at this point, like, Snute knows, like, all right, all I really need to do is just keep building Roaches. Do not stop for anything.
I think he had the rally points messed up a little bit there. Polt definitely took way more damage than he had to. Even though he didn't die here, it's going to be very hard for him to close out this game. Snute went back to building Roaches after he squeezed out a few more drones, and he should be fine.
It's definitely going to be caught. I think he might need to pull a few to help hold this off. He's got only 4 more in production. He really needs to just get his forces together. He's supply blocked. 2 Overlords are on the way, but Marines are already coming in, and he cannot afford to lose these Roaches. He needs to build up enough to shove the Marines back. Drones coming off the line. Polt getting some damage done. 3 workers picked off, going for Roach after Roach, 1 by 1.
I think it's going to be fine for Snute in the end. Queen's helping out over here, pushing these Marines back, and Polt also kind of knew this wasn't going to work. He took a refinery, but, I mean, what do you even do right now if you're Polt? Do you just research stim and try again?
He's so far from getting stim, but then at the same time, he still would need to follow up and get, you know, all the add-ons for his other barracks. He needs a factory, he needs upgrades. Those are the things that are going to allow you to stop a Roach Ravager-based army.
Do you think he's going to even go up to factory? I kind of feel that he's just going to try to end this game with
based on what we've seen in this series, I would be surprised. This series has shown me some of the most bio play without Medivacs that I think we've seen since 2011.
So it's just kind of important that Snute keeps a close eye on what Polt is doing on the other side of the map. He still has Overlords nearby. Make sure he knows when Polt's units are leaving. Make sure that he knows that, oh, 1 more refinery going down, by the way. So we'll see what this is. Just don't over-drone like a madman. You know, setting up your economy is fine, saturate the bases nicely, but don't completely overdrone, because right now your opponent has absolutely zero attack. So it comes down to the same thing as it came down on Central Protocol. Defend one time without taking too much damage, and you'll be fine. But on Central Protocol, he just took too much damage the first time.
Yeah, the biggest advantage for Polt and what he's going to try to play off this game is his insane amount of production. 8 Marines at a time. We're not even 7 minutes into this game yet. What Snute is going to have to deal with, you just pointed it out, is when Stim finishes, there's going to be an insane number of Marines. This map, he needs to use the corrosive biles on these choke points, and I actually love that Polt's going to break down the rocks, because he realizes if he fights in these choke points where that splash damage ability can be cost effective, that's the one way he loses this game horribly.
Well, after taking that third refinery, Polt has just dropped the factory. I mean, obviously Medivacs is still pretty far away, and eBay is halfway done as well. This is kind of odd, because by the time that Stim and combat shields are ready, you obviously want to fight. But Polt can't really fight them, because that's when he will almost have Medivacs. I don't think those Medivacs will be done in time. Snute has absolutely no larva at the moment. He also spotted the fact that these rocks were broken down. I mean, it's safe to say that Snute is in a really good position.
Okay.
Just now the layer going down.
I was going to say, that's the one thing I really feel like Snute is missing in this game, because that layer, Roach speed, will allow him to get much better positions, but also, if he gets caught out on the map by a large Stim army, he cannot run away unless, if he doesn't have enough to win the fight, he can't run, because with Stim, he'll never get away without Roach speed or creep spread.
Yeah, so creep spread is going to be very important. I would also love to see Snute just send one unit around the map. You know, this is kind of a weird series, so it wouldn't be too shocking to see Polt try to get away with a hidden base or something like that. I mean, neither player has actually sent anything to the right side so far. Of course, with the way that these builds clashed early on, it's unlikely that any of them had money for it, but it is funny to see the right side of Arena so far just completely ignored.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, and you just mentioned this with the lack of information or units being sent across the map, is that Snute has not always been 100% aware of what's going on. There are Medivacs coming out. This is not the same exact type of push, but it is just going to be a very one-punch style. The main base of Polt is pretty much mined out. There's no third command center, so I expect him to start floating over once he gets a couple of these mineral patches down, because some of them are getting pretty low.
He could even float to the gold as well. Of course, that would be very hard to defend.
The ultimate YOLO move.
Against drop overlords, but I mean, you never know. Polt's still down in supply though, but I think he has a few less harvesters. +1, I think, might actually finish up a little bit quicker for Polt. I mean, army supply right now, Nate. Snute is not super far ahead. I mean, it's 17, but it's a lot of roaches. I think on creep, Snute is more than fine with all the roaches and ravages, but off creep, it would already be a much more difficult fight.
Yeah, the most important thing is to just be ready for this army to come in and use the corrosive biles to push him away. Keep in mind, yes, he got Medivacs, but if 2 of them are split off for this drop, that means there's less to actually heal the main army if it stims.
Yeah, and actually Snute can just jump on this army, I think. I really hope that Snute just looks at this and he's like, well, if that's all, I think I can actually just take this the longer he waits. I mean, Polt is setting up here, maybe trying to snipe a fourth base.
There's no fourth to snipe.
Maybe 2 queens over there. You might get 2 queens for free. Good scan there by Polt. You don't want to fight too far on creep. So he's going to clean out a couple of those creep tumors.
This 1-1 is really important. It's going to help a lot, allow the roaches to get 2-shot volleys in on these Marines once they have stim. But Polt's just going to go for it right now. He's got a massive army. Keep in mind, there's no third base for Polt. Snute has more money overall to work with if he can keep this fight going over a long period of time.
Whoa, that's a big stim, to say the least. Every single unit in the army there of Polt.
Oh,
he runs into a
stepping into the fire is Polt as Snute steps forward. He's finally getting some good shots in on this army. Polt perhaps stepping forward a little bit too much, a little too zealous, but Snute stepping into his own corrosive biles at the same time. The money is there for Snute. He just needs to hang on as long as possible.
Yep, 15 more roaches on the way. Snute is maxed out at the moment, so he should be fine. He has those 1-1 upgrades as well. He has a bigger army. He has more workers.
And there's the float.
Yeah, and he has an upgrade advantage. I mean, what more could you wish for? These are pretty much all the advantages you can have in a game of StarCraft 2.
Yeah, Polt's going to split off 2 Medivacs that do immediately get spotted, trying to drop Snute. What he's hoping for is to draw more roaches than Snute needs to protect against this drop, and that will allow him to go for a favorable head-on engagement. But he's got the roaches here. He's got the queens coming as well. He just needs to prevent this from really distracting him too much.
I mean, that or too little, and then he can just clean up those and pick up a couple of buildings. But Snute, it seems like he split off the perfect amount of roaches. He didn't send too many that Polt could actually win a fight in the middle of the map. He is at least keeping Snute on 3 bases.
That's another big stim. He's throwing the corrosive biles forward. He gets the Medivacs in the back, but some of these Ravagers are left. Terribly explodes. Money fungos all over the bio. The corrosive bile hits everything as well. Polt's army for Snute. Good God.
Wow, and he gets one more medevac as well that actually had a couple of units in it. An absolutely phenomenal fungal straight out of Zerg heaven.
Slam down that R key, Snute, build the roaches, and push across the map. This game is yours. Polt crumbling behind at 95 supply. One of his bases horribly exposed out on the map, and Snute just keep attacking, keep pushing. This is all he needs. He's gonna pick up another map in this series. He just has to punch that ticket in.
Yep, 192 supply against 82. He's gonna push these units away from Polt, and he's running into the natural, maybe pick up a couple of SCVs, but this was a really good game by Snute. He was much sharper. He knew exactly what was going on. He didn't overdrone. He had enough units, and that's it.
GG! Snute takes a map back, and we are at a 2-3 score for the Norwegian team Liquid Zerg.
I mean, that's a great point to get on the board. Obviously, he had to. He has to do it 2 more times, as this arena is really full right now, by the way, Nate.
Yeah, there are so many awesome fans here to watch some great StarCraft action. Thank you so much for coming out. This has been an insane best-of-7 finals so far. The next map is going to be Ruins of Ceres. We're heading away from the crazy side of the spectrum, Roddy, a bit more towards the standard maps.
Yes, but it definitely depends a little bit where both players spawn. I mean, I think it's safe to say that if you're a Zerg fan or a Norwegian fan or a Snute fan, you want cross-map, or if you're Snute yourself, you definitely want cross-map. And I think if you're Polt, you won't really mind vertical all that much, or even horizontal is very playable, but I think cross-map, it becomes a lot more difficult now. Obviously, Polt is a world-class Terran that can play super late game against a Zerg, but it's unlikely that you can really catch your opponent off guard when it's cross-map Ruins of Ceres.
Yeah, the biggest things to keep in mind as we get into this next map are going to be that airspace, the drops. Polt, is he going to bring the pressure? Are we going to see him go for another big push? If we get that cross spawn like you mentioned, I don't think that should work against a player as good as Snute.
I don't see that work either, Nate, and I would love to see maybe some Liberators actually. Can you believe it that we're like 6 or 5 games into this series, and I don't think we've seen a single Liberator. 6 games actually.
And Captain America saving his deadliest freedom tool for last, Roddy.
Maybe we saw 1 or 2 on Orbital, but it's bizarre to say the least, because that's the unit that we've seen all over this tournament in the round of 32, round of 16,
I think if you're Polt, you looked at the Liberator, you know it's a good unit, but you say this can't snipe bases.
Well, all right, we're almost ready to hop into game number 6. Of course, Polt still 3-2 ahead in this best of 7. Can Snute make one of the most epic, legendary comebacks we've ever seen in StarCraft 2?
That is what we are going to find out. Such a tense match, so much on the line. $20,000 to the winner of this best of 7. Polt just 1 map win away from claiming that, and of course a title, a ticket to the WCS Global Finals at the end of the year. Everyone racing this year through the WCS circuit to get there, and it can possibly end here for this man in the bottom right. If he can take this map, he can take the championship and that beautiful Intel Extreme Masters trophy in the bottom right. Representing Korea and CM Storm, he's Polt.
Still looking incredibly focused. Of course, over here on the left bottom side of Ceres, which does mean we have horizontal positions. It's the man who won the first and the last map in this series so far. It is Snute.
And for all the reasons that you were talking about, these spawns are going to be a little bit more trickier for a player like Snute, unless we see that aggressive play again. If you're Polt, you have a very direct path to your opponent because they spawn both on the bottom side. There's not a lot of areas where you can be hit with a flank or a run-by of sorts. So we might see that heavy barracks aggressive play, but depending on the opener that Polt wants to go for, this game looking like a Reaper, it could still be a much more standard setup overall.
It could also be the same build as he tried to do on Lateral Leg Crest, because this is also a map with a very wide open ramp. Now, obviously, that build didn't really work out for him, but that's because Snute probably had different plans himself and just made all these roaches, and he's like, oh, that's super cool, you know? I can just kill all these Hellions. If his opponent wouldn't be ready, there's a good chance if you open up with 12 Hellions that you just have the barbecue of the century over here and barbecue yourself a WCS title.
Yeah, definitely not a bad way to get it, especially considering that Snute must be so on edge right now, because Polt, you look at him, you say, okay, he was always good. He was always very aggressive in the mid game, but we have seen in this tournament and already in this best of 7 multiple times incredible amounts of aggression from Polt on the 1.5, 2 base setup. So if Snute prepares for something like that again, it's possible that Polt just says, you know what, I'm just going to go back to playing my normal mid-game thing and gets an early lead like that.
Yep, we'll see. First Reaper is making his way across the map, maybe even a quick 3cc. I mean, it's fallen out of fashion a little bit. There we do see that first factory go down, and it should normally stay at one factory. I mean, normally we don't see a factory go down and like, could be another one, because you know, that's not common anymore, but he already showed us once, and this map, you know, with the way that the Natural is designed, it is a tiny bit similar to Ladder like
You make a great point, and it's also that that Natural ramp, as wide as it is also very far away from where the hatchery is. So if you put your queens there, the Hellions run by, all sorts of bad things can happen. And Polt is getting a second gas after that factory, so he's opening up the door for either a starport play or, as you said, another factory. I would be very shocked to see a second factory. Highly unusual. No one does it. I'm expecting to see a starport for either a Hellion drop, maybe a fast Banshee. And on this map, Liberators are pretty good too.
Yep, there we do see that starport go down, and that's of course a little bit more in common with, or incentive to common.
Or tank drop, of course. Important to note, as Polt's done that already once or twice.
I think it's a little bit better on Ladderlag than it is on Runes of Saras, though. I mean, we haven't seen any Cloaked Banshees yet either of Polt, which I think is still a small option as well, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, there is a fair amount of Cloak Banshee play to be used in this matchup, but I think Polt still likes going for the tank, because in a funny way, if you really think about it, the games where Polt didn't open up with the tank drop are also the games where a tank drop would have been the most useful. If you open with that fast medevac and that tank on Arena, that early Roach Ravager play, it's honestly not that strong. So it's really kind of funny to see how the builds flip-flop like this.
And I guess there is one advantage of tank drop is that even when it doesn't really do a whole lot of damage immediately, you keep your opponent busy and you force him to at least pay attention to the tank and the medevac. And let's not forget that on Orbital, Snute was supply blocked multiple times.
Yeah.
And it could be that Polt was just really annoying him and like just forcing him to pay so much attention to that tank and the medevac that he actually forgot to build overlords a couple of times.
Well, I mean, StarCraft is just such a game of much more than strategy. You have to be fast, you have to be able to respond and react quickly to all those things that are happening to you while still developing match strategy. So Polt putting the pressure on is just another great way to slow down everything Snute is doing, even if he doesn't deal, you know, literal damage to his units or bases.
I don't think Polt has a whole lot in his Natural right now, right? We see a couple of Lynx trying to run by. He has a little bit of a wall up, but those Marines are out of position.
Could snipe a Mule perhaps here. Good pull back by Polt, but delaying a bit of mining. That bunker has range to cover the entire mineral line.
8 Roaches on the way, double Spore Crawler as well. I mean, Snute has to be careful. It's a triple Rex follow-up. Stim is already on the way. Polt has his Polt Viking that's on the way. He's going to be able to snipe a couple of Overlords. But look at that, Nate. It's a third CC.
Yeah, Polt has taken the same approach in this game that he took on Orbital Shipyard. So I'm expecting to see him just go for that very similar drop with the tank, add on another tank, and then go into the Marines and do that double medevac with the double tank push, which was really, really strong. So the key here for Snute is, of course, he has to avoid the supply blocks that really hurt him before, but establishing that fourth base, once again, is going to become a big point of contention.
Medevac actually ate a lot of shots over there from these queens. And Snute is not supply block. There is a Viking that's hunting away, but so far Snute's economy is looking very healthy. Ooh, the
2 more Overlords are about to run into the danger zone.
Split them up, man. Split them up.
Yeah. Say goodbye and spread those Overlords out. So the lair is on the way for Snute. He actually is getting Overlord speed, so that should be totally fine for him to get back.
Look at that, 10 more drones at once in the production tab.
It's really important that he recognizes he can actually build those drones, because seeing the 3rd command center says, oh, I'm not facing 7 barracks all in, so
you can get the medevac.
Great snipe on the medevac, move those queens around, and that siege tank is going down.
Yep, very well done. The tank might be able to pick up 1 queen, but still, that's a good little pickup. Medevacs are expensive. Overlord speed finished up, by the way, so one of these Overlords that we thought was going to die did actually survive. I think this has been going quite all right for Snute. Comparing it to Orbital Shipyard, I feel this has gone better.
So let's talk about this map in general. If Polt is not able to deal damage, you have such a wide open area by the 3rd base of where Polt will want to expand that a counterattack will be very difficult to stop. You have a lot of area to cover. You can hit from the southwest side. You can hit from all over the north side. And that makes it very hard to defend if you commit these medevacs, if you commit tanks to a push and fail.
Well, the first 2 medevacs are making their way across the map. Polt's going to try to look for an opening. I don't think he'll be able to find a whole lot, though. Snute has not spread himself very thin. Plenty of units are nearby. He's got a Spore. He's got a couple of Ravages. Corrosive Ball will land and connect with the
full medevac. Nice moves. Wow. The medevac pullback that survived, has almost no health too, so Polt has been swatted back, and now Snute can say, hey, you trying to take that third base? Because I don't think you got too much over there.
Take a look at units lost over here so far, because I feel that Snute, you know, compare it, this time Snute lost way less than Polt.
Yeah,
Remember
I mean, on Orbital it was...
lost 5 times as much.
Yeah, so the biggest thing here is that the tank count is low, and these Ravagers and Roaches don't need to attack into this, but you can put a lot of pressure from the top side. It's actually quite similar to what happened between Polt and Lambo, where he had this position on this map. So let's see what he can do. Roddy pointing out he's got a lot of money as well. When his Overlord's finished, he could build a lot more Roaches and Ravagers.
Yeah, it's important not to overcommit over here for Snute. He can definitely deal damage, don't get me wrong. Gets a couple of Marines, maybe get a tank if Polt is not paying attention, but with so much money in the bank and such a long reinforcements distance, and he was supply block as well, you want to be careful. You don't want to just throw these units away, and I think retreating is really smart.
Great predictive corrosive biles as well by Snute. If he were to throw all 4 biles at once and miss, those Marines could actually run up and snipe all of those forces. So great commitment to a bit of pressure, and then pulling back as he takes the 4th base. And with those Overlords finish, Snute's got a lot of money to build more Roaches and Ravagers, and possibly some Infestors with
Yep, he should be able to max out a whole lot quicker than Polt is. Polt is even supply blocked at the moment. Perhaps pressure getting to him a little bit as well. Those 1-1 upgrades are finishing up. Snute has a lot of gas in the bank, so he could immediately start 2-2. It would excite me to see that.
Pathogen glands. We are going to see Roach, Ravager, Infestor. Snute has used this so much. It is very strong, especially if you can land those fungals like we saw on Arena. Those are about as cash money as it gets. So the Roaches are here with the Ravager to defend against this drop. Polt is going to have to pull back, but now he steps onto creep. He's going to clear up the tumors, but Snute knows, hey, you want to attack me from 2 sides at once.
This is well done by Polt, though. I mean, he's forcing Snute to pay attention to this medevac, and at the same time, at least he's pushing that creep back a little bit. And I also think it's worth mentioning, it is double factory tank production over here for Polt.
And Polt,
so he's going to have a lot of tanks to work with.
The other important thing to note is that Polt sends 2 more medevacs to the top side because he says, okay, I already see what you've wanted to commit to defend this, but I think I can commit a little bit more, and those 7 or 8 Roaches you have are not going to be enough to stop 20 Marines.
All right, so this is basically what we saw in the Nerd Show series. Snute is in a decent position. He might be able to shut down a big frontal attack, but if Snute eventually decides to attack, he has to make really, really sure that he can actually deal with the counterattacks of Polt, that he can deal with the amount of medevacs that are active on the map. That's a lot of Marines. Does Snute have enough here? Well, maybe. It depends on his control.
Some of Snute's army is getting pulled out, so Corrosive Bile's going to drop, not really hitting anything. That 4th base under a lot of pressure. A lot of high energy queens are going to get picked off here. Throws the transfers in the extractor, but some drones are going to fall too at the same time. Snute, no, don't counter. Pull back. He needed to have this army back home a lot earlier. No, some of it's getting caught by the army. He didn't pull all of it away.
No, this is the exact same thing. Polt is doing it again. He did it against Nerd Show. Doesn't have a great early game. Counterattacks, gets the 4th base. Snute left units behind, but he didn't leave enough behind. And suddenly this game has turned around. Polt is looking very good right now.
Polt moved in with those medevacs right as he had baited Snute's army away from his main forces, so he couldn't run home to defend before losing the 4th base. And now Polt, he is continuing forward with potentially the Doom March. Great fungal on these Marines, but he needs to drop some biles to finish him off.
Well, maybe one more fungal, that's going to be it.
Not bad.
Marines do go down, but the tank count, though.
He's chipping away at this, but the tanks are going to be the scariest part of this army. You know, he's full TVT mode right now.
He's setting up a surround. He's staying out of range of this scan circle. He's going to try to engage from all angles. Polt does see it because he has the Zelnaga watchtower. If Snute engages, he has to make really sure. Upgrades finished up, by the way. 2-2 is ready.
He throws the infested Terranex to soak up the siege tank attacks, but as he moves forward, he's hitting from all sides, going in from the north and the west, but the siege tanks are being microed back beautifully by these medevacs, and there is such a far line to fall back on, but Snute seems to have barely pushed Polt back. Can he finish it up is the big question. He gets a lot of damage, but some of the tanks do manage to be saved. Important things to note, Snute is just halfway towards getting that 4th base back. He did not lose all of his infestors, but Polt, he's still got a very strong army behind this.
What a nerve-wracking fight there for Snute. I mean, tournament live on the line, and you have to engage into 6, 7, 8 tanks, but he managed to do it. However, it doesn't mean that he's super far ahead. It's 3 base against 3 base right now. Snute did finish up his fort, or actually it's almost finished up, but you know, it's not really saturated yet. First Liberators are on the way. He used all of his fungals. Snute has to be very careful here.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to move in here. He tried to get a couple of these Marines. Maybe he didn't expect these siege tanks to be here, but he actually does get on top of them. He just needs needs to pick these up.
Wow.
These tanks are so exposed, and they will be forced to lift up. They will be forced to retreat, but Snute has fallen behind on supply, and those tanks are just so cost-effective.
A couple of the medevacs are very low on HP, though, so maybe a Fungo in combination with a corrosive ball can really turn the next fight upside down. It's important to mention that during the very big fight, Polt's 2-2 upgrades were not ready. It finished up a little bit after the fight. Now it is ready. 3-3 is not on the way yet. That's a good sign for Snute,
And Snute needs to commit something to defend this fourth base. Again, at the same time, Polt says, okay, you're going to come over here and try to hold on to this. That's great. Now I'm going to hit you a little bit again from the front. Good. Corrosive Biles gets the medevac full of Marines. Great shot there. And now Snute needs to bolster all of his forces. He's got a lot of supply to work with. If he can clean this army up again, I mean, Polt's main is mining out. He's going to have to expose himself by flying that orbital or command center over.
Yep, and that's what he's going to do. Polt's going to try to take a forward base. Big engagement in the middle of the map. There are Liberators over here as well. Corrosive Balls. He's stepping in a Liberation Zone. Fungo is good, though.
Yeah, I mean, he gets rid of one of the Liberators, but there's still another one raining freedom down upon this army. Picks off the next one, and Polt and Snute still very close in supply, but more Liberators on the way, more siege tanks on the way, and, of course, important to mention, those Marine upgrades.
That was an expensive fight for Snute. He was up quite a bit when it comes to supply before that. He's going to eat a few more tank shots over here, but he's going to try to pick up the tanks. He's getting really nice and close to them. Corrosive Balls will land on the tanks and the medevacs, but a couple of them do survive. Very close game supply-wise. Tanks being dropped. Corrosive Ball.
Oh, hits quite a few of the siege tanks. Those are the units that are really going to prevent those Ravagers from getting close enough to Corrosive Bile, the Liberators. But Polt, another drop going to the top left side. They're trying to hit that fourth base. 8 Marines are going to run for it. There's a Roach and 3 Queens. Good transfuse going to land, holding this back. The Queens have been good control, but now Polt's getting that fourth base of his own.
It's an incredibly close game. Polt is up a little bit in supply, and he's definitely looking good with that +3 attack, but this game can still go into Snute's favor. He's making a lot of Roaches at once. He still has Infestors. It can all come down to a couple of Corrosive Balls and Fungals.
Yeah, good Queen defense to push this back, keeping these Marines away, possibly getting close to that medevac. What Snute really needs is a Dream Fungal on these Marines while they're extended, and some
good Corrosive Balls on the Liberators immediately. Like, I think that last fight, he dropped a couple of Corrosive Balls, but one Liberator survived, and it was pushing out a ridiculous amount of damage.
A Liberator kills any of the units in Snute's army right now in 2 shots. So it is a very powerful tool where as long as it can just fire a couple times in that fight, you're eliminating several supply for Snute.
Yeah, Polt is pushing Snute pretty far back to his side of the map, and Snute has thrown down a Spire and is going up to Hive. Interesting moment to do that. Lands a Fungo over here, is going to snipe all of the Marines. Kind of a nice gift there by Polt. Here, take those Marines.
Yeah, he does have another double drop towards the top left as Polt continues to press forward. He's done a great job of just shoving this creep back into Snute's face, and that gives him a lot less area to work with for engagements. That creep is so important for taking fights against Terran.
I really love how both players are playing at the moment. Polt is sending his orbital command north, so that's going to be his 5th base now. +3 attack has finished up. He's starting +3 armor, and I kind of feel if you're Polt right now, you want to fight soon. You know, you don't want to give Snute his 5th base. You don't want to fight against Brutal Lords. Ooh, Snute is going to try. It's so hard on creep, though.
Those Ravagers are squishy. Oh, great Fungal on the Marines. If he can hit the Biles, yes, he will. Taking out a nice chunk of those forces. That's going to slow Polt down a bit. And, of course, any fight, like you mentioned earlier, these medevacs are quite low on hit points. It's very rough. Roach is a great job at defending these
fights. Snute's only 25 supply ahead right now, but it's important to mention that Snute has not been attacking for a long time. He's getting Burrow. I like that. I think there were a couple of moments in this game where if he would have had Burrow, it could have been awesome to get close to the tanks or keep Roaches alive. Polt is making more and more tanks. That Spire is done. It's not a greatest Spire yet, but look at Snute's money. Snute has a little bit of money. There we go. It is morphing. And let's see what the Roaches can do on the other side of the map.
This is one of those positions where that Greater Spire could be the tool that he needs. The Roach is on the counter, but Polt is getting ready to push in on the 5th base of Snute. If he gets the 5th, he'll kill the 4th. That high ground position is so important, so useful. Now, the Liberation Zones have been set up to cover the flanks of the tanks, and that's going to make it very difficult to go for a surround.
Well, he does get the 5th immediately. Maybe a couple of Corrosive Balls can take care of at least one Liberator over here. I think Snute's going to try to intercept the reinforcements. Now suddenly Polt is quite a bit ahead again when it comes to supply. Of course, Snute is buying time. He's building Corruptors now. Snute wants to fight with Brutal Lords, and I think that Polt is starting to suspect this because he's like, hey, you know, you had a big army before. Why are you not trying anything? Why are you counterattacking? Are you trying to buy time? Well, I'm not going to give you that time, and I think that Polt is really going to try to push the issue here.
Yeah, Snute just needs a little more time. Gets a decent Fungal on the medevacs, holding the tanks in the air. They go down as Snute presses Polt back. He doesn't need need to attack into this. He just needs a little more time to get those Broodlords out.
Yeah, he already lost that 5th base anyway, so there's really no need to fight there unless those tanks go too close to his fort. But for now, having
Greater Spire is done.
Yep.
5 Broodlords are on the way. This is the tool. This is everything that Snute needs. If he can just hold on for these bad boys to finish, he should have a fighting chance at routing this attack.
Yep, a lot of Medivacs, very low on HP as well. One fungal would be great. Good job there by Polt, though. He's splitting up a couple of those Marines. He's playing very well. I really think that Polt is expecting this. He's up 25 supply, but the Broodlords are finishing up. And then suddenly these tanks are a lot less scary.
That's right. Just pull the Roaches back, pull the Ravagers back, let the Broodlords do their dirty work as the tanks begin to friendly fire on the Marines. Polt is going to need to go for a different tech option to handle this army.
I mean, let's not forget that Snute has retaken a 5th base a little bit more north, and Polt is not aware of this as far as I know. I don't think he saw it. And I really think that Snute this time should do, as Funk is showing us, Polt does not know about it. Oh, he's trying to stim forward, so risky.
It's risky to do that. You know, Broodlords have more range than they used to in the older games of StarCraft 2, so this is still a great position. If those Marines step forward and he fungals them, he could be it. He's going to try to go in from a surround.
Snute's going to be a little bit careful, though. He doesn't have that many Roaches over here. Polt is playing so awesome as well. He's really doing a good job in not just taking too much damage and somehow, some way, keeping a couple of these tanks alive. He's sending Medivacs to the north. That's when he will discover that 5th base that he didn't see yet. I kind of feel that Snute cannot give Polt too much time because Polt has those 2 bases.
That's right. That's the biggest thing right here is that economy.
Oh, the Broodlord's so exposed.
He can't afford to lose these bases at all, and the creep spread is not far out enough. Is Snute going to be able to respond in time? I think he should lose this base.
Yep, and just like that, just on that moment, I mean, a couple of drones have been transferred, so this is a very, very, very juicy pick-off for Polt. He's not just getting the hatchery, he's getting all of these drones as well. Phenomenal drop here by Polt. That's exactly what he needed to do.
And those Broodlords are on the south side. They take so long to come up and help deal with this army. Some of these Roaches and Ravagers completely caught out. A little bit of move command action going on here. And this chunk of Snute's army will die suddenly. Seem to be falling apart right now, trying to deal with this army.
Couple fungals from the high ground maybe, but good splits there by Polt. I didn't know you could split with tanks, but he's doing it, Nate.
This game has taken a pretty rough turn for Snute. The Broodlords are strong, but the Viking count is being built up. The Infestors throw the fungal down. The Broodlords are hitting from very far away, but the money isn't there for Snute to follow up from this.
Nope, losing that base. I mean, he didn't really want to take that base. He just was forced to take it because Polt took out this initial 5th base, and this base was a lot harder to defend. Polt is so incredibly rich. 3,500 minerals in the bank, 1,300 gas. He's throwing up 3 starports. I mean, he's living the Terran dream right now, and Snute is just working with what is left. I mean, of his first 3 bases, really not all that much. No creep spread anymore either. He just has that 4th base, and that's the only thing that he has at the moment. He's just really got to turtle up. That's his only chance to keep his WCS dream alive.
It'll be very difficult to make this work just with so much out here. I mean, a couple of free Vikings are nice, I guess, but Polt's also adding more command centers so he can lock down bases. He got building armor, he got high-sec auto tracking. That means attacking the planetaries that are out on the map is going to be so difficult.
5 queens on the way for Snute. I mean, he had a lot of minerals, no gas. I kind of like that because I really feel that just pushing out creep again is going to give him some more time to survive. And, you know, as long as you're maxed out, it doesn't really matter how rich your opponent is. For my part, he has 10,000 minerals in the bank. If you can get close to being maxed out, you'll always have a shot in StarCraft 2, especially because Snute still has upgrades as well. He just needs to find a way to get enough time to be close enough to be maxed out. Even 185 supply would be good, you know, 180, 175 is acceptable, but you can't fight with 146 against 200. That's just a losing fight.
He has the tech he needs. He's got the Broodlords, he has the Infestors, but you know, a Viper here and there is important, but also having enough meat underneath to push the Marines back is really important as well.
I think he has 1 Viper on the map currently. I think 2nd Viper on the...
Yeah, he just finished the 2nd one. He's starting a 3rd. Parasitic Bomb is really good against Vikings.
Okay, he gets a couple of Medivacs for free again. So far, so good. A lot of these tanks shouldn't be extremely good against the Broodlords.
He's going to just force it all right here.
All right, I mean, Polt just lose a lot of units. Polt is maxed out, but that is not his entire army. The Broodlords are very far out of position, though. This is a real problem for Snute.
Yeah, Polt's just done a great job of abusing the immobility of those Broodlords. As powerful as they are, as how much range they have.
The Greater
He can't lose
Spire.
his tech. The Greater Spire, it will go down. He can get the Infestation Pit. No more Infestors. He can get the Hive. And once that's gone, that's it. There's no more tech at all.
I mean, a couple of Fungus go down. Parasitic Bomb being dropped over here as well. I mean, Snute may get the Vikings here, and that's pretty cool, but He's losing everything in his main base. He will not be able to produce any units at all.
And now the Broodlords are just going to fight against the Marines. He's gotten underneath them, are all going down. No more Broodlords. For Snute, his army has been completely crushed. There is 0 tech on the map. He can't build anything but drones.
I think that this is going to be it. He is building drones though, but Polt is very close to securing his 4th WCS championship, and that is absolutely insane. Bongles will go down, corrosive balls do a lot of damage, but Snute just doesn't really have all that much left.
Polt has defeated Snute. He's up 100 supply. He's crushed through the forces, and back home he's building 8 Liberators at a time with more tanks, more Marines, and more bases. There's just too much here for Polt. A spawning pool starts up for Snute, but I mean, it's gonna take him forever to even get back up to a hive.
Yeah, basically Snute has lost everything. He is starting a StarCraft 2 game right now, while Polt already has all the infrastructure a man can dream of. He's still dropping, he's still picking up drones. I mean, nobody wants to tap out in the grand final, but Polt is in an absolutely phenomenal position, and I think Snute knows it as well, that the writing is on the wall for this one. Polt, man, what a player.
He's spent all of that bank into this mass Liberator follow-up to help lock things down. The Marines come out here and catch a few of these Ravagers. They're all dead. GG, Polt secures his championship title 4-2.
$35,000 will go to this man again. He did it last year in Season 1, and he's doing it again. I mean, what else is there to say? Absolutely phenomenal TVZ by Polt throughout this entire tournament, and a really cool finals.
Just an absolutely amazing display of skill from both sides. Polt breaking out the old builds, working with the new units, and really throwing everybody in this tournament for a loop, not playing his normal predictable style.
Yeah, how cool was that? Polt is busting out builds that we haven't seen in a long time. Didn't work out too great on Larolek, didn't work out perfectly on Arena, but it did work on Pryan as well, and even on Central Protocol he was able to squeeze out a win in something that didn't really look like a very promising scenario. So just an overall awesome performance by this man again.
Stepping down to claim his rightful prize here with the Intel Extreme Masters Championship. Your champion, Polt!
An absolute wonderful performance by Polt. Another championship to his name, and deservedly so. Polt is the Intel Extreme Masters champion of 2016, defeating Snute 4-2. And boys, what a performance, and he deserves it. He's won tournaments years ago, and he's back again, 2016. Another title, another championship, and Polt is once again on the lips of every fan around the world.
It's amazing. I mean, we've been talking about this whole time. He's been doing it since 2010, the entirety, every continent, every big tournament, GSL here, DreamHacks, MLGs. This guy is timeless. No patch can stop him, no map pool. Any kind of opponent, he'll go right through him.
He just can't stop winning to Muslimer. A brilliant performance once again.
One of the original 3 Super Terrans, MVP, MMA, and Polt, and here he is still winning tournaments.
And by the way, he can lift that trophy. Holy crap.
And shake it around, apparently.
What a trophy. It's a great moment for Polt once again. We do have Hydra, Nurture, and Snute on stage as well. The top 4 of the Intel Extreme Masters receiving their medals for their remarkable performance over this 4-day tournament. Mike Morheim also giving out the medals here. And it's been a difficult road. This has not been an easy tournament. 32 players, single elimination all the way to the grand finals. A brutal format, but these are your top 4. And of course, Polt is the Intel Extreme Masters champion.
Polt, you came here as a man on a mission. You said you would not let your fans down. You didn't, and you are the WCS champion for the Winter Championship. Your 4th title. Explain what that means to you.
Yeah, I promised my fans I won Letdown, and I did it. And this is my fourth WCS Championship title. Well, when WCS system was announced, like this region lock, someone said like Polt is gonna win like 15 times, and well, it may be true. Who knows?
Okay. What is it about the WCS that just seems to bring the best out of you every time you play in it?
Since I play like a lot of same players again and again in WCS tournament, someone might think it could be easy or something like that because I can analyze them or be prepared well, but it's not that easy. I mean, in the last season, I participated in 3 seasons and I just won 1 season. And so, like, from that tournament, I learned a lot. Oh, if I play like this, then I just lose. So I prepared like way more than I used to do. And for the next time, of course, I will do more and more.
Okay. One final question. I just want to talk about Snute. He's had a fantastic run through the tournament. Just a few words about your opponent in the final.
Snute is one of my favorite players. I respect him a lot. And because of that, like, people probably noticed that I played quite differently from what I'm used to doing. It's because I respect him a lot, and I expected like his very high skill in the late game or mid game or wherever. So I had to pull out like my everything, and even after that, I barely won this championship.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for your WCS Winter Champion, Polt!
It wasn't easy. It really wasn't easy for Polt, but he did at the end come out of it 4 games to 2. A valiant performance, and I think that was a great final to watch, to enjoy, to remember. We've seen many great finals in the past. It didn't quite go the full distance, but it was a great series to watch and control.
It was, and I love, we were talking about this going into it, the mind games between these players. When you have a top 4 like this, where any one of these guys, as the Muslim said, could win this tournament, you do have to change yourself. You do have to conquer your demons. And Polt, talking about how last year he learned if he plays the same, he will lose. To see him reinvent himself here, it's incredible.
I said it before, and I'll say it again. Polt is a guy that is not going anywhere because he knows how to play these series. He said it there in the interview. He's like, I respect Snute so much. That is the reason why I played specifically this style of play, this very aggressive early game style against Snute. If he tried to go late game against Snute, who knows what would happen, but Polt is not going to let that happen. And that's because he's a fantastic, long series player, best of 5, best of 7s. He's always super strong. And I think that's part of the reason why he won this championship.
He's a great tournament player. He's a great series player. But one thing that really stood out is not only does he know his own strengths, but he knows his opponent's weaknesses. And he slammed down on it. He focused down on what Snute was weak against. Started off the first game with that Hellion all-in, which didn't work out, but every game after that, he just, and even on Arena, the 5 racks, like the 5 naked racks, he really tried to utilize Snute having a really good late game, and he just didn't want to get to it.
I'm looking forward to seeing what both players and the rest of the players can continue to deliver the rest of the year in 2016. Many more championships still on the line throughout the year. Any closing words here before we wrap up the finals in control?
I was saying this earlier, but just what a treat it is to be a part of this. Poland, an amazing place to bring championship level StarCraft and all the games here. So thankful for this audience, so thankful for this venue. So happy to be a part of it, and just how exciting it is. I know this is the end of an IEM season, but it's the beginning of a WCS season. I'm excited for the future. We had some North American players really showing some promise. A lot of those European players doing really well, and some others too kind of being reminded that they are mortal and they need to work hard. But also some guys, Snute, he's like, this is the first time on the stage. Look how close he came to winning it all. He can do it, and I'm so excited to watch more.
Great tournament, great crowd, great games. Absolute had a ball being here.
I just love the way that the new format is shaping up these tournaments as well. Like, so many stories from the beginning to the end. You know, some players that made it through upsets, but made it really far. You know, these foreign players like Nurtio, like Snute, really making it the distance. It's just been an absolute treat to cast for all of this stuff, and I had an absolute blast.
Oh, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Polt, of course, a big winner here today, and I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of Polt throughout the rest of the year. Thank you for joining us up here. Thank you very much, Rotterdam, Nathanias, and Maynard as well, for bringing us the games and all the action. But that's us done now for the StarCraft 2 Intel Extreme Masters World Championship. We're finished up here. Up next in the arena is going to be the Counter-Strike Finals. I'm sure a lot of you are excited for that. We're done. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.